avec la session budgétaire. Monsieur Godin, we're going to section 8 for
Yep, that's correct.
It's section
infrastructure.
8. So just before we go down the list of capital projects, we added in this section a list of vehicles. It was a request from council to include a list of vehicles in this presentation. So we've included basically over three slides. We have a list of all the vehicles. The information we've included is the vehicle itself, the description and the value. As part of the fleet management that we're developing, we're going to be looking at adding conditions and stuff like that as well. But for your reference, we have a list of all the vehicles in the next 3 slides.
Juste une question.
Okay.
So, le ladder truck, il est listé, on l'a à 3,85 comme une valeur. Le ladder truck. Le dernier dans le
Ouais,
code.
non, je vois.
On vient juste d'acheter l'année passée.
Non, mais je pense pas que c'est le.
C'est ça? C'est le ladder truck. On a acheté usagé, je le sais. Et on a mis beaucoup
Donc-
d'argent pour le.
Ouais.
Le réchauffer.
C'est plateforme, je pense pas que c'est le truc.
Oui, c'est le ladder truck.
Aerial ladder truck.
Ouais, c'est ça.
So this says it's a 2003.
Yeah, well, we bought it used, right?
I think the values that are listed here reflect the values in from our insurance policy, but I will validate that just to make sure.
Okay, I was just curious.
L1,
Councillor Kanoski?
Just question, you just said it's the, so is the book value or the purchase value? So it's like, or is it, it's, reduced?
Replacement.
Is it, it would be the replacement value. Yes.
Thank you.
Replacement value would be considered
Or maybe
higher for that one especially.
Yeah.
le vieux truck à pompier, avec un mille.
Okay, so that's a list of the vehicles council had asked. Any other questions on this? No? Move on to the next slide.
Right, so the next few slides, we're gonna go through the list that we have in the binder in section 8. Basically, each department is just gonna go through their projects, not necessarily go into details on each of them, but just at least to describe them, and if you have any questions, we can provide commentary on that. To start, for finance and for the town hall, the first project is virtual city hall. That's what I was speaking about earlier this morning regarding having an online platform where residents can go on our website, being able to see their invoices there, access their statements to know how much they owe, as well as make payments through that platform. So I've identified it as virtual city hall, which is the module from our current financial system, but we are, like I said, we are evaluating some other options. Maybe I should have just put online payment platform, but we're at this point evaluating virtual city hall versus payment.
So that's total 26,000, 10,000 infrastructure, 16,000. I'm sure it's not a trivia night, so.
This one is not a trivia night. Basically, 16,000 will be the portion where we will be financing from water and sewer rates. Since this is something that would be used for both services,
Okay.
we wanted to attribute a portion to the user fees.
Okay, perfect.
Then we have the continuation of the HVAC project at the town hall. So as you know, we're in renovation at this moment. This is just to since the project isn't complete yet, it's included in the 2019 budget. We're not going to get any additional funds, it's just a continuation of that project.
Okay.
Project 125-19-16, a replacement of the town hall upper main roof. So our roof is due to be replaced or rehabilitated. We're just gonna look at fixing that.
Again, this might come often during the discussions, but is this, if it's replacing a current asset?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we might want to start the discussion with that, so that they're going through this, we've already,
Okay,
taken note of, what we're proposing in the strategy. So Marie, si tu peux aller à... Je vais juste marquer ça, ça me fait pas ensuite, il y a pas ça, ou ça, c'est ça. Ouais. C'est ça. On est au slide 163.
Infrastructure.
Alright, so basically this section of the presentation, we're talking about different financing available for capital projects. So and one of them, as you know, is our infrastructure fund. So I'm trying to elaborate on the infrastructure fund and explain to you kind of a formula that we're proposing, something we've come up with to help directors manage their capital budget, as well as to help council make investment decisions and stuff like that, and to try to make links with our budget process, and asset management as a whole, to use the information we've had from those studies in an efficient way. So basically, juste pour commencer, le premier slide ici, c'est juste un petit peu une description de c'est quoi le fonds d'infrastructure. On voulait établir clairement c'est quoi, de quoi qu'on entend quand on parle du fonds d'infrastructure. So what we really mean when we're speaking about the infrastructure fund. So essentially what that is it's the taxpayers' investments in the township's infrastructure. So when we talk about that fund, we're talking about the amount of taxes that we're investing into the capital budget. For each department, that's not funded through user fees. So any projects for water and sewer aren't included in this fund, as well as other departments that are from user fees, like building department and stuff like that. So basically, just to put that into context, when we're looking at our budget, it's the sum of the numbers that we're transferring to capitals from each department, and the amounts that we're transferring to the asset management reserve. This is what we're considering our investment into our infrastructure.
I guess for Councilor Taranowski's benefit, this fund was derived from back in the 08, I think it was 08-09 timeframe, when council decided to take the garbage and recycling fees out of the tax base and make it a user fee. There was about $1,025,000 fee amount still in the budget at that point, and council decided to, instead of rolling back taxes the $1 million, to keep that $1 million in the budget and use it strictly for infrastructure services. So that budget now has gone up over the last 10 years to where it is today, right?
Thank you.
Okay. Donc ici, ce qu'on présente, c'est un petit peu juste les dernières 3 années, incluant l'année qu'on propose aujourd'hui, les investissements qu'on a fait dans ce fonds-là. Donc, en tant que transfert au capital, en 2017, on regardait à 1,6 million, 1,62, parce qu'on a monté à 1,65, 1,64, puis là, dans le budget 2019, on regarde à 1,7. Puis aussi, vous voyez les montants qu'on a transférés dans la réserve d'asset replacement en dessous. Donc, un montant total, on voit qu'on a augmenté de 2017 à 2018 de 4%, puis là, on propose une augmentation de 6,3%. So essentially what we're seeing here is we're proposing to have $2.05 million investment into our infrastructure. I'll make the link later on to the funding gap that we present when we do the asset management plans, and just to show you kind of how we're seeing it and how we're planning on addressing that issue at the same time. Donc, comme je disais, on propose une nouvelle formule de financement pour la gestion des immunisations. We're proposing that strategy would be to gradually increase those investments, in order to reduce the infrastructure gap. And also to have each department's portion of that fund clearly identified, and for it to be based on, to be fact-based, so basically to be based on the annual requirement that is identified from our asset management plans. And just to give you a bit of background and more information on what we mean by annual requirement in asset management. Asset management is something that's required from the province since a few years. It started in 2009 with PSAB, where we had to account for our assets, and then in 2013 they imposed that every municipality had to have an asset management plan to plan for the replacement and the rehabilitation of their infrastructure. And they came out with new requirements as well. Starting in 2019, we had to have a strategic management policy, and we'll have to update our asset management plan and to refine it in the upcoming years as well.
Essentially, it's proper planning for the future.
Exactly. And when I talk about annual requirement, basically what that represents is if you take all the investment required for all of our assets to replace them or to rehabilitate them, to maintain the level of service that's offered by them, the annual requirement would be the average investment that you would need to have to make every year in order to be able to sustain.
Just to, for information purposes, I believe it was either AMO or FCM that released a paper, I think it was 2017, that indicated that on average, Canadian municipalities would have to increase their annual budget 8% a year for the 10-year period just to maintain the current level of service as far as infrastructure is going. So obviously that's not sustainable, or from a taxpayer's point of view, so that's why they've been working hard with the provincial and federal governments to make that understand, because we receive a smallest portion, but we own the highest percentage of assets, and municipalities own a lot more assets than the province or the feds do. So that's why there's ongoing discussions at that level.
That's correct. So the next slide is going to go into details a bit more about, for the Township of Russell, how much we would need to be able to fund that requirement. I'll explain what these different columns are. So the annual requirement, like I said, we wanted to identify it by department in order to establish which portion of the infrastructure fund should go to which department, to have an idea of what the need is. Just to elaborate on this column, the annual requirement, it's based on our asset management plan, on our asset management database. This is showing that we would need to invest yearly about $4.4 million to be able to sustain to keep our level of service where it is, and to replace all our assets when they need to be replaced. I just want to elaborate that is a working number in the sense that at the moment, not all, but most of our assets in the system are set up so that they have a historical cost, they have a estimated useful life, and to say that after their useful life, we have to replace them. Well, that's not necessarily the case for all assets. There are some asset management strategies that can be implemented to reduce the annual cost. And we are doing studies to work to refine our database to have that information and to be able to reduce that $4.4 million.
Right, because even though, for example, the road is only supposed to, or a piece of equipment's only supposed to last 20 years, we know that by condition assessment, it's 18 years in, and we realize that it's still good for another 10, 12 years. So that's why there's the asset management, but the condition assessment goes hand in hand with that to validate that information. Councillor Tarnowski?
Just to clarify it, how close is this to the actual allowed depreciation process that you would have, like for the tax purposes? Is it close to that, or is it completely separate?
To the depreciation?
Yeah, like what you're allowed to depreciate, like CCA or whatever.
Yeah, so it's very close. So basically, for all the assets that, like I just mentioned, the formula that we calculate the useful life and the historical cost, basically that is the amortization that we have yearly on the financial side. So those two numbers, for a lot of assets are identical. If we do have asset management strategies, that's where we'll have a depreciation which is really just the cost divided by the useful life. But with the asset management strategy, the annual requirement would be different because we wouldn't necessarily just be replacing it at the end of 20 years, for example. We would be investing, year 5 we'll invest $10,000 and it's gonna extend the life for another 10 years. So basically here what we did is identify the annual requirement based on our asset management software for each department. So we see with the ratio that, for example, about 68% of our annual requirement for our assets belongs in the public works department. Like I said, we're not including user fee departments here. So obviously, water and sewer, they have a large portion of our assets as well, but it's not included in this analysis here because they have their own separate fees and stuff. So we see 68% for public works and roads, 13 for Parks and Rec, and then some different ratios for each of the other departments. So the next column after that, basically we said we wanted to gradually increase the fund every year, so we came to council with a first draft of $2.05 million for the infrastructure fund. So that $2.05 million will be allocated to these departments as per the ratio of the annual requirement. And essentially the infrastructure gap is the difference between the requirement and their share of the fund. So we're presenting $2.3 million here. Like I said, we know that for a lot of assets we can implement some strategies that's going to bring that gap down, but we do know that there is a gap, and which is why we are proposing that we should continue to gradually increase that fund on a yearly basis.
So just to confirm, the 2.205 million in the budget, the shares are broken down that way. So we're looking, so Parks and Rec is getting $272,000 of that infrastructure fund in their budget.
That's correct. So I'll explain in the next slide, I think it is, or the
Just one.
two afterwards. But yes, essentially that's what this means. So what we have here is kind of the formula or the strategy that we're proposing to apply with this fund. So like we said, of the 2.5 million, 2.05 million, column B here is the same as column of the third column here, the share of the proposed fund. The actual transfers to capital is column C. So what we're saying here is that, and just to backtrack just 1 second, in our reserves where we're going to be looking at later on, each department does have an asset management reserve, and so those reserves exist already. What we're saying here is the difference between your share of the fund and the actual amounts that you have capital projects for. The difference is going to be managed through the reserves. So essentially, if we look at Public Works, for example, their share of the fund would be 1.4 million. Right now in the capital budget, there is for $1.05 million worth of projects. So the 352 that they're not going to get from that 2 million, it would be transferred into the reserve and used in a year where they actually need more. Like for example, if they have a bridge to replace and stuff like that, the funds would be there for that. Parks and Recreation, in this case, is c'est le contraire en fond. Leur portion du fonds, c'est de 272 000, mais cette année en particulier, il y a des besoins pour 495 000, qui fait en sorte qu'il va y avoir un retrait de la réserve d'asset management pour 200 000. Jusque-là, est-ce que ça...
Yeah. Monsieur Leduc?
So now this is the formula that you were asking, Mr. Duggan, as far as when do we go and remove or pull out money from the reserves of the AP reserve or not. So this is the formula we've used to say when we go and when we credit.
And maybe just to elaborate on that, the reason and that's kind of the reason why we don't want to automatically go take some money from the reserves when it's a project that would qualify based on its nature, based on it being a replacement. There's not necessarily going to be the funds in the reserve for it. So if we always go to the reserve when there's a need for replacement, then the reserve would quickly just be abolished.
And to be clear, we haven't built up a huge reserve at this point in time.
I mean, we do have a reserve,
But
but,
if we continuously just say, oh, it's asset replacement,
exactly.
we keep going there, we won't necessarily
Right,
repopulate that fund.
So in the past few budgets, our use of the reserve, wasn't completely random, but I mean, there wasn't it wasn't as structured as
As it is now.
as having this it would be kind of more of a plan, and it could also help when we apply for some grants sometimes to show that they always ask for our asset management plan, and if we're able to show that we also have a kind of an action plan to reduce our infrastructure gap, that's always looked upon positively.
Councilor Janowski?
Just a procedural question, how do we account for, in this process, how do we account for time value of money or inflation? So when you're replacing assets, when you're costing them, and 5 years later, that same asset is worth more?
That's a good question. So we have an asset management software. It's called Citywide, and basically right now all of our assets are in that system, and that's where the calculation is made. And we do include an indexing. So if it's due to be replaced in 20 years, then in the calculation of the annual requirement, that indexing is taken into consideration.
And that's why some people might look at that $4 million number for asset replacement and say, it's because we're calculating the cost, the value in 20 years' time. It's part of that calculation. The $4 million per year is actually what we're a shortfall. But it takes into account that as we go through the years, that we're going to be paying those fees 15, 20, 25 years down the road.
That's correct. Just to kind of summarize why we're doing this, what are the benefits? Basically, well, the intent is to have a kind of a structure and an investment plan to help council in making investment decisions. We want to bring a stability to each department's municipal contribution. Right, so you don't, for example, if they do arena, well, there's not going to be so year X where there's a lot more projects being done. The contribution is not going to be much higher than the next year, because basically the difference is going to be done between the transfer of capital or transfer of reserves. It helps directors with planning the replacement and the rehabilitation of their infrastructure. We can look at the reserves, we can look at how they have a good idea already of their portion of the upcoming budget. They can have a look at their assets and what needs to be replaced in the upcoming years and kind of plan their reserve around that. And like I said earlier, it shows that the township has a plan for the replacement, the rehabilitation of their infrastructure, which can help when we're applying for grants. The province is really pushing on advancing the asset management plans and strategies.
So this, just to confirm, so we're looking at a $4 million shortfall currently just to maintain the level of service we want for the annual requirement as per asset management is 4.4 million, but we have
But
2
we are
million.
investing $2 million.
Right, so we're at $2.3 million shortfall.
Right.
Just to maintain currently what we have moving forward. This doesn't include any projects or anything like that going forward.
That's correct. But I do want to stress that number, if we had perfect asset management strategies in all of our assets in the database, that number would go down quite significantly. I can't give you a number now, but and we are part of the project that I spoke on a bit earlier when I presented the operational budget for asset management. We've hired PSD, which is Public Sector Digest, to help us out with. They've produced our strategic policy, and they're helping us also with the database to help us refine it, and to help us have templates for condition assessment, so that we can get engineers to have the correct information and develop great strategies so that we can.
And that's an ongoing process that within a year, 2 years, like, I guess where I'm going at with this is I'm looking at this, I see there's a $2.3 million shortfall just to continue with what we have going future, and we're talking about adding significant infrastructure to the system. So we know that if we decided to take $1 million out of the fund to fund a project down the road, well, we have to realize that we're actually creating a larger infrastructure gap
Right.
than we currently have. Just making clear for myself.
That's correct. So basically, the formula applies to the capital budget as a whole. But we do have to, it has to be understood that when we're doing projects, so if we're replacing an asset with a new one, there's minimal impact there, because basically it might be the same annual requirement, it might be less, it might be more. If we're proposing to build something new that we didn't have before, then that's adding, that new asset is gonna have its own annual requirement that's gonna be added on top of this.
On top of this.
So this will have to be updated on a yearly basis,
Yeah.
based on updated condition assessments and based on new assets,
Right.
or less assets when we sell.
And this is assuming, like, this number is there, but we're not taking into consideration provincial or federal funding that might be increased
Right.
down the road,
Yeah.
or, different, same thing, when we get rid of an asset, then this cost is obviously diminished and so forth.
Right, so what we've used here is strictly the investment from taxpayer dollars into the transfers to capitals or into the reserve, which at the end of the day is gonna be used for capital. And the reason we've used those two is basically when we've had our asset management plans done, when they do the studies, that's what they do. They do, okay, well, what's the sustainable, what's the constant investment into our infrastructure, and basically the tax dollars is pretty much the only ones. We do have grants, OCIF, which lately has been going up every year, the gas tax as well, but they're not guaranteed for long term, right? So that's why they're not included here, but it is another backup and something else that helps us
Right.
with our asset management.
Questions? No? Councilor Ladang?
More of a comment, I guess. So based on that, as an example, if we were to build a 3-pad rig complex, 2 of the pads are replacement,
Yeah.
1 of the pads would be incremental, and therefore it would increase. So just for straight numbers, it would be a one-third increase to this versus the full amount. Is that accurate?
Right, yeah, that would be accurate. I mean, if everything else excluded, everything's the same, the fact that we would have 3 instead of 2, that should be, you have the right idea.
Councilor Janowski?
So maybe I don't understand, because even though I'm replacing one for one, let's say an ice pad rink, but an ice pad rink that's at the end of its useful life versus a new one will have a higher operational or lower value.
Well, basically, the annual requirement is averaged out on the life of the asset. So, to answer your question, even if it's at the end of its useful life and its actual value is lower, the annual requirement would still be the same from year one. So, if the value of the new construction, the new rec complex, for example, is the same, except it has 3 ice pads, so it's a third more. Then no, so it was still be the same.
I guess it would be, for example, the current arenas cost 1 million back in the day. Did they count that a new arena today would be 10, 15 million? I guess that's where, it might have said, oh, it's worth, a new arena is 5 million, and then when we go to build a new arena, well, it's actually 10 million.
It's indexed.
Right. So, but it's how accurate that is.
Right, so there's the indexing that comes into factor, and there's also the asset management strategy. So if we look at our assets and we know that, listen, we have this asset based on its historical life and its useful life, it's calculating X amount for an annual requirement, but we know we're not gonna be replacing by the same thing, we know we're gonna be replacing it by something larger or different completely. We can update that information in the system. We're just not there yet, but that's where we're working on refining our database. So basically, yeah, so we wanted to explain this concept before going through the list of projects, just so you understand. You're not going to see anywhere in the presentation projects being financed from the asset management reserve, because at the end of the day, if we look at this slide here, we have $1.7 million in projects requiring financing, and we have $2.05 million in financing. So $1.7 million is coming from taxation, and $274,000 is being transferred to the asset management reserve.
So we're using infrastructure fund to do current and we're adding 274 to the asset, but there's nothing coming out of the asset management reserve in this budget.
That's correct.
Okay. So are we going back, or we got more?
Yeah, so at this point, we can go back to the list and go through our capital projects. So on était au slide 123.
124?
Oh, excuse, 124. Non, 123, I guess. So I mentioned, so yeah, the last one I mentioned was the upper main roof. Le quatrième, peut-être Amélie, tu peux élaborer, ça c'est pour le générateur de l'hôtel de ville.
Oui.
Pour expliquer ça.
On s'est aperçu que de temps à autre, le générateur de l'hôtel de ville, il a commencé à avoir des problèmes où est-ce qu'il arrêtait. Après qu'il fonctionnait pour un bout de temps, puis il arrêtait. Puis ils ont déterminé que c'était un manque de gaz. Donc ils doivent changer une station ici. Ils doivent ajouter une station ici qui va donner plus de gaz à la génératrice. Puis le prix pour
On va faire ça, c'est
ben, je pense que la station est 20 000, puis les prix, ça soit fait par un autre.
And we gotta keep in mind, this is an emergency center in case of an emergency, so we gotta make sure that we got power here and that we're ready to go in that situation. Conseiller Brisson?
Juste technical, que tu dis c'est parce qu'il manquerait de gaz, mais c'est-tu de quoi avec le fonctionnement de la génératrice comme le carburateur, tout ça, ou tu dis non?
Ben, on a fait venir Enbridge, on a fait venir la compagnie de générateurs. On a fait venir un technicien pour que tout soit alimenté parce qu'on pensait que c'était quand tout marche, les fournaises,
Voir la capacité qui est pas assez grande.
que là, c'est là que le gaz, il y avait trop de demande pour le tuyau qu'il y a là présentement. Donc, c'est ça qu'ils ont pensé que c'était. Je
Les
ne
ventes.
pas aller, j'espère que ça va fonctionner.
Mais ça va être une réserve de gaz naturel.
C'est pas une réserve, c'est juste une station qu'ils mettent ici qui va fournir plus de gaz au générateur.
Merci. On continue.
Donc, le prochain, c'est pour la gestion des immobilisations.
Donc, il est question aussi de l'ambulance, la construction de la station d'ambulance. Monsieur le maire, peut-être vous pouvez nous mettre à jour sur les discussions sur le
Oui,
bail
au niveau des
qu'on
comptes
disait
ici.
hier.
Oui, so essentially, everything's approved at the county as originally was proposed. They've taken out the clause that we had inserted that was discussed. So that'll be coming back to us for confirmation on our end. But essentially, it's pretty much what we had worked on at the beginning, minus the clause for the purchase price that it's $1, the clause they entered into.
So that being confirmed, that means that now the infrastructure department will get going with this project, and therefore you'll start seeing some work and by the end of the year, and a turnover date of March 31st in the lease of 2020.
Question, conseiller Brisson?
Le 41 000, ça c'est pour des ingénieurs, tout ça pour avant, parce que je vois qu'en est passé, dans les choses de la construction, il y a un 41 000.
Monsieur Bourgoin?
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, pour répondre à votre question, Monsieur Brisson, le 40 000, c'est le project management, l'équipe qui a préparé l'appel d'offres, qui a préparé l'appel d'offres pour aller en soumission pour les prix de construction. Donc, on a fait l'appel à une aide externe pour la préparation des documents.
Puis là, c'est pas mal tout préparé. Ça.
Oui, là, nous, on est prêt à publier, dans le fond, l'appel d'offres. Puis il y a déjà eu une préqualification de fait pour les 7 entrepreneurs là, qui attendent pour soumissionner.
OK. Prochain LED lights.
We'll skip that one. Shaw will get back to this one afterwards. Land purchase. So this is the second part that we had discussed and agreed to regarding the town land purchase. So that's what we had agreed to last year, and it's supposed to be due by July of this year, finalizing the agreement. Now, there's a third portion of it that could be discussed further in closed session at next meeting.
Right.
There might be an additional amount of money for additional option on another land purchase on that property. So we'll be speaking about that in the next council meeting.
Okay. Monsieur Godin?
Ok. Donc pour le prochain thème, c'est les LED lights aux arénas de Russell et Hammer. Ça, c'est un projet de 2018. La raison qu'il est encore ici, c'est parce qu'en 2018, on avait laissé non financé. We had left it unfinanced to be financed from savings in energy. And donc, je vais juste encore deflect a bit from the capital project just to explain another financial strategy or another initiative that we're proposing in this budget for the energy fund, which is a reserve that we created with the reserve management policy, and a kind of strategy that we want to use for all of our energy projects going forward to kind of minimize or to eliminate the impact on the taxation dollars, so that we don't have a contribution from the taxation, and that these be funded through this energy fund that we're proposing. So I'm just going to take a few minutes again just to show another kind of financial strategy. Donc c'est ça, ici on propose une nouvelle stratégie d'investissement pour l'énergie. Donc l'idée c'est d'avoir un fonds qui va être employé par les économies, puis des fonds, utiliser ces argents-là aussi pour réinvestir dans d'autres projets d'énergie. So the idea is we reimburse the fund for the projects, and then instead of just having the savings on our tax base immediately, once the project cost has been replenished, we would apply, for example, on 4 years, so we keep 75% of the savings into this fund, and then 50%, and then 25%, and then the saving will be 100% on the taxation dollars. So what this would help us do is not need to have taxation dollars pay for those projects, and ultimately build a fund that's going to be able to help us reinvest into more energy efficient projects. Donc, nice, c'est just to show you maybe a visual of how this would be managed for these for this LED retrofit project for the arenas. In the slide deck, we do have the paper copy of Schedule 8, or if you just follow on the screen.
Zoom, s'il vous plaît.
So essentially, ce qu'on a ici, c'est we had a project of $110,000 with yearly savings of $35,000 coming from this project. So the 4 rows you have in this table, the first 2 rows would be the transfers to or from the reserve, and the cumulative reserve. So in year 1, in 2018, we've taken $110,000 from this reserve, so essentially we have a negative balance of 110. The following 4 years, our saving is put directly into that reserve. So you can see the balance of the reserve coming back, and at the end of 22, we actually had a positive balance. And the idea is that once we've reimbursed the project, if you will, like I said, for another 3 years, we keep on investing into the fund. So year 2023, 75% of the saving will go into the reserve, and 25 would go as a saving to the tax base. In 2024, 50%, and then 25%, and then 0%. So what we see is that ultimately we've been able to accumulate a reserve of $82,500, $82,500, which can be reinvested in another project, and our tax base was able to save up to that year a total of $87,500, and the saving of $35,000 just continues basically year after year after that.
So the strategy is to completely repay the project. In this case, you have 5 years to, where it gets repaid, so there might be some where it's 2 years, some that it's.
Right.
And it'll always follow that ratio of 75, 50, 25.
So that's what we're proposing here. I think, sorry, for this one, yeah. So this is what we're proposing. I think, right now we have two projects, as we had this project last year. And, you'll see when we get this realized that we're proposing the same thing there. I think it's a practice that, I think I'm proposing that we start this, and we can relook at the ratios, the 75%, 50%, 25 makes sense, should it be different? That's something to be analyzed. But, at the end of the day, I think it's a program that could make some sustainable investment into energy, which would be good for the tax base, because at the end of the day, it's, savings on taxes, and also for the environment. It would be a good initiative.
Continue, merci. Question?
Ouais.
Monsieur Buisson?
Juste clarifier, comme le montant que ça dit comme de 35 000 pour les lumières, est-ce que c'est un montant que sur papier qui est ça? Parce qu'autrement, le coût des lumières dans l'aréna, il y a bien d'autres coûts qui peuvent être influencés. Mais là, qu'est-ce qui arrive si tu n'as pas vraiment, c'était comment mis là, comment tu peux le savoir?
Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci. Donc, avant de faire le projet, c'est sûr qu'on a fait faire l'étude, puis on a eu des estimés. Donc, initialement, le 35 000, c'était l'estimé du fournisseur qui a changé les lumières. Maintenant, ça fait, le projet aux arénas a été fini avant la saison, avant que la glace est installée en septembre. Donc, on a quand même été capable de regarder aux factures de septembre, octobre et novembre. Puis, on peut voir que les économies qu'on a par rapport à en gros, si on regarde la facture d'hydro, la facture d'électricité, parce que c'est ça qu'on regarde comme économie, puis on peut voir que c'est quand même, ça ressemble beaucoup aux chiffres qui ont été parvenus par le fournisseur. C'est sûr que ça pourrait arriver qu'il y ait des projets qui nous présentent un chiffre et que le résultat actuel ne soit pas ça. Mais on est en mesure quand même en fin d'année de voir le chiffre qu'on a estimé au budget pour la dépense d'hydro, puis de calculer l'alliance pour être en mesure de mesurer si ça va bien fonctionner. Puis on a aussi une obligation de reporting. So we have some reporting obligations to the province on our consumption of the kilowatt hours that we use for all of our facilities. So with that reporting, we're able to see if we did have savings or not. We're able to evaluate if the project was a success or not.
Et qu'est-ce qui arriverait, c'est justement que ça ne rencontre pas qu'est-ce qui est promis,
Ouais.
là, qu'est-ce qui arrive dans ce temps-là?
Ben, je veux dire, en ce moment-là, le repaiement du fonds, il serait fait sur une période plus longue. Si l'économie réelle n'est pas de 35 000, mais de 20 000, par exemple,
Là, ça va être
ça
réajusté
prendrait
dans le
peut-être
temps.
5 ans et demi avant de... Il faudrait considérer juste à ce moment-là.
Mais le principe, j'aime le principe que we're using our savings to reinvest.
Puis, étant donné que c'est une nouvelle initiative, c'est certain que le fonds d'énergie, pour commencer, va avoir un solde négatif. Mais je pense au bout des années, on va être capable de bâtir un fonds et qu'on va être capable d'investir de façon régulière.
Councillor Sosi?
I can't remember, has the library been retrofitted with the LED lighting?
No, not at this moment in time. We did do the study, so we already have estimates on how much we could save. What we did last year, we had the studies done for 4 different facilities, for both arenas, for the Emmerich Fire Hall, or 5 actually, for the Emmerich and Russell Fire Halls, and the library. And we had chosen just the 2 arenas to start, since they were the biggest bang,
Savings.
the quicker payback.
Okay, got that.
Donc, pour revenir au slide sur le capital, dans le fond, c'est ça, les lumières LED. Ils apparaissent encore dans votre document de capital comme non financé à fin 2018, mais là, on le finance par la réserve, qui est dans le fond le fonds d'énergie.
Monsieur Leduc?
En communication, il y avait un projet débuté l'année passée avec le Historical Society. Et puis, on a l'intention de mettre des UG, environ 10 plaques historiques dans la municipalité, so we're anticipating about 10 plaques throughout the township. So we're working with the Historical Society to identify those sites and have some information about those sites so that we'll be installing a post and a clear plaque as to what it is and what it meant in the past and for our history. So c'est un projet qui n'a pas été fait l'année passée, qui est réalisé en 2019.
Conseiller Laurent?
I think the presentation's been fantastic so far today. Only thing that I can ask maybe going forward is for next year and going forward, just from a visual perspective, can we keep the same sides of where the French and English are? Because it seems to jump every now and then. One side, this side's English, and this side's French and that side's English. So I'm always focusing on that other side, and then all of a sudden it's switched.
Okay.
So I know I'm being nitpicky. It's just hard to.
Yeah, we apologize, I don't want to aggravate you, we just want to keep your attention.
It's a way to keep us on the ball.
No, it's not intentional, but certainly we'll address that.
That's fine.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Okay. Everybody's okay with the historical plaques?
Yeah.
Yep. Councillor Associate?
Are they gonna have a QR code on them, you know, like there's somewhere you swipe your phone and then you get
A link to
history?
a website?
Yeah.
That was our intention, and I think it might still be, but they wanted to have a nice kind of a bronze plaque. It's not gonna be a bronze plaque, but a kind of material. So depending how can we affix a QR code on that plaque. So it depends what we can do with it, but that's the intent.
Perhaps what an option could be is you have your plaque, you have your post, and the QR code could just be on the post separate. Something simple that.
And the next slide is about IT. Every year we do invest into our asset replacement in computers. So in this case, this year, normally we spend $30,000. This year we will be spending $20,000 on all kinds of replacements of screens and whatever else we need. And also there's a server switch that needs to be replaced. It's outdated, so therefore we need to have that replaced. There's 2 of them this year to be replaced. That's all for IT.
Okay. Fire departments we went through already.
So the next will be bylaw.
Madame Bordeaux?
Yes, we have additional cameras for the city hall. And we have, in the amount of, I believe it's,
4,800 for interior cameras, 7,000 for generator hookup.
the generator hookup is for the multi-storage building.
Okay.
We are hooking up to the existing generator at the Public Works. So they're gonna,
The one generator is going to furnish both buildings.
3 buildings,
Three
the
buildings.
garage, us, and
Okay, so it's not a new generator, it's
it's
just
just a
connecting.
connection, so transfer switch.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Rochaine, for building inspections, new truck to replace. Say, it's a new truck to replace. We have $40,000 coming out of, it's being shared between, is it being shared?
No.
No, it's coming from the reserve, from the building reserves.
So 40,000 from 2 different reserves for a total of 80,000?
No, it's because you're seeing the subtotal, just something, so it's just a
My bad,
just a 140,000.
just 40,000. Okay,
And this is, like I mentioned earlier, so for user fee departments, we don't wanna, we're not considered with the infrastructure fund, so that's why we see it's being funded from the building reserves.
great. Councilor Ray?
And which vehicle out of the vehicles that we've seen on the list is it replacing, and what are we doing with that other vehicle?
Okay, Madame Tremblay?
So right now, we have the journey that is being split between our department, Bylaw, and ours. So I'm keeping the truck.
You're
For my-
keeping the journey?
Yeah, no, I'm keeping the old truck
Okay,
and replacing the new truck for a building inspector that is doing more kilometer. So the journey is gonna be fully,
so the
This
journey
is a-
will go 100% to the bylaw department?
yeah, like it is right now, right now we're not using it.
Okay,
And I'm keeping the old truck, but replacing the old truck for the building inspector that are doing a lot of kilometers.
So what's it gonna be doing then?
For building, planning, we do inspection most of the time for like maybe when we do zoning bylaw amendments and site plan, we need to go and make sure the sign is installed, so we do inspection, but not as frequently as the building inspector.
so.
So instead of sharing the journey and running after the journey when the bylaw needs it, we'll have a truck on our own.
So you're keeping the old truck to
Yeah.
do one job,
Yeah,
and you're getting a new truck to
for
do.
the replacing
So the new truck will be doing building inspections, and the old truck will be used by planning for other
the.
type of inspections.
All the others. So right now, we're, let's say for bus passes, that Vanessa uses her truck all the time because we never have a truck. So the old truck will be used for buses, passes, business interviews and all those things that we do less frequently. The truck needs to be replaced.
So as opposed to using our personal vehicles, we'll be using.
Yeah, that truck.
Okay. And then Rami?
Is there more questions, or it seems like it's some. Most of the time, what we do with old trucks, we give it to another department. That's the exact same thing that we're doing now. We're just reusing that truck for less work that needs to be done because there's a lot of kilometers on it. So its lifespan is almost done. It
So
says that's really poor.
So I guess my question is that currently you're using
Our own
vehicles?
Yeah, to do all of the other things because we never have a truck.
Right, you're writing off the
Yeah,
kilometer.
on our pay every week.
Right, so perhaps from a spending point of view, are you writing off $10,000 a year on kilometer? You know, if you tell me you're writing off $10,000 and then we're going to see the return on our investment in 4 years' time, you know, a year 5 we're saving because we're not paying the kilometrage and that stuff.
But that's coming from the reserve as well, right? So it's not something that,
Still an expense.
yeah.
I just wanna add something from experience. We've had employees using their cars, they got into accidents,
And the insurance doesn't cover.
they're, so,
We're
No,
trying
we
I'm just
just,
saying that the employees shouldn't have to use their cars.
right, but we just wanna make sure that,
And the other comment that I hear is that everyone here has a truck. Right, so I wanna make sure we're not getting a truck just because we have the money in the reserve to get a truck. We're getting a truck because we need it, and there's no other vehicles that are able to be used. Whether it's a bylaw truck, a journey, a recreational truck, or whatever that's sitting here doing nothing. If somebody can use it, then great, take it and go use it, versus just having another truck, another brand-new truck on the road.
Madame Tremblay?
So many years ago, I purchased a Journey, which I'd never be able to use because it's always Byla using it. So right now, I'm asking to have a truck so I could use a truck and not use our own vehicle when we have meetings, when we have like buses passes that we do every week and everything else like this. So that's basically why, because we need it and we don't have a truck, and I don't want my employees and myself to use our car.
Okay, so with that comment,
Yeah,
so your department paid for that truck for the journey years ago,
yeah.
and now your
Yeah,
department.
we split the expense. It's running from.
No, I guess this is more an accounting thing, just make sure we're charging to the right department which the vehicle should be going to.
So
Because I don't
right
want you to
now-
pay for a vehicle she gets and then you pay for another vehicle to get.
No. So right now, the Journey is split in between two departments. It's gonna be fully under Byla.
Okay.
And then we don't share trucks anymore.
So in the accounting side of things, the journal entries are done to reflect
do
that.
it.
Yeah, we just.
Conseil Brisson?
Ma question, c'est est-ce que tu as vraiment besoin d'un truck comparé à un small SUV? Parce que je sais que les prix d'un truck sont bien chers comparé à un small SUV. C'est pour ça que...
So we're buying a truck for the inspectors. So I'm just taking whatever's left, which is a truck, but the inspector needs a truck. because they go on site, construction site all the time that are not, roads that are not paved, and so we had that discussion many years ago. They need a 4x4 truck.
Monsieur Leduc?
So I'll try to summarize it. So this vehicle has reached almost its end of life. It's normally in first line service for inspections. So instead of trading it in for a small amount of money, so we keep it here for our own internal use, but it's a smaller use that we normally have for the truck, but the new truck will be on the road on a daily basis by an inspector going on site where there's no pavement, when there's all kinds of things.
We require trucks, ça c'est certain.
Yeah.
They have ladders.
But we just
and
be
equipment.
keeping it instead of recycling it or trading it in for some small sum of money.
Right. Merci, Vincent.
Vu qu'on parle des camions, je sais que c'est pas dans votre département, je sais qu'avec REC, il y a un vieux truck qui est à côté de l'aréna, qui n'utilise pas. Est-ce qu'il y a une politique pour ça? Est-ce qu'il est complètement fini, qu'il y a autre chose, mais pourquoi qu'on le garde là?
Madame Bitard?
Merci, M. le maire. On est dans le processus là, de le vendre. C'est juste parce qu'il faut tout afficher ça sur GovDeals, parce que c'est de l'équipement municipal. Donc, on ne peut pas juste décider de vendre le camion comme ça. Donc, on a pris la décision, on va le mettre là-dessus, puis ça va être à la meilleure offre. Là. Parce que le camion ne vaut plus rien. C'est l'ancien camion des bailleurs de 10 ans passés.
Mais là, il y en avait-tu un nouveau qui avait été acheté?
Non, nous autres, on n'achète pas de camions nouveaux, comme Dominique a dit tantôt. On reçoit les camions qui sont usagés. C'est ça qu'on
Mais là, si tu l'utilisais, qu'est-ce que tu utilises?
J'utilise pas le camion qui est à vendre. J'utilise le camion que la voirie m'a transféré l'année dernière.
Ah, ok.
La voirie a un nouveau véhicule, puis
C'est ça.
we're being efficient with the vehicle use we have. We're recycling it to another department that can still use it. And then as it keeps going, well, at one point it goes on government deals for sale. Okay? Okay. So on comprend tout le 40 000 pour le truck? Okay, move on to, semble un peu, c'est un truck. Okay.
Ça en est un basic.
You get a traffic, you get a traffic.
Ça en est un basic, après ça,
We're not Oprah here.
Okay, Monsieur Godin, next. Roads Department, Transportation Services, Monsieur Bogon.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, dans la section véhicules et équipements pour la voirie, on a le remplacement d'une déneigeuse qui est prévue. Cette déneigeuse a atteint la fin de sa vie utile, si on peut dire. On a le budget pour des bancs des poubelles qui a été transféré de 2018, car on attendait d'avoir fini l'étude du Streetscape Master Plan avant de prendre une décision de quelle stratégie adopter avec ce budget-là. Puis on a l'achat de 2 unités de radar de vitesse. So those speed radar will be shared with the counties, part of their program. So basically we're paying for one and they're paying for one.
Just a point of order, just a point of clarification. On the website, are they seeing the slideshow as well? Annalise?
No.
No, they're not seeing the,
No.
they don't see the slideshow. Okay, because I was going to indicate perhaps in the future, if we could, the numbers we're seeing here, if we could just jot them down with the snow, like snowplow replacement, 276,000, the benches and trash cans, 27,000, or speed radar, 9,000. So that, because ça va être quelque chose ça va être publié sur notre site web.
So on peut l'ajouter avec.
Yeah, so we'll be able to add those numbers as well. Conseiller Brisson?
Tu parlais pour les bancs et les poubelles, tu attendais l'étude, mais il n'y a rien qui se fait comme c'est là, mais donc c'est où que planifie c'est pour quel endroit ça?
Ben, présentement, c'est ça, on n'a pas discuté de la vocation, si vous voulez, là, de ce 25 000 $-là. Donc, je vais avoir des discussions avec Mme Tremblay pour voir de quelle façon qu'on s'y prend, puis potentiellement là, ramener quelque chose au conseil là, pour vraiment dire le plan d'action. Peut-être que ce serait pas nécessairement de l'achat matériel, mais peut-être de la planification ou la création de plans, possiblement.
Et faire certain que si on va de l'avance, qu'il y a des fonds dans le budget pour ça.
Exactement. Donc, cet argent-là, c'est vraiment pour la rue principale là, qui va être dédiée.
Conseiller Lisa? Larry, excuse.
So that wouldn't, if you're talking about working with Madame Guitar, would that include the trash receptacle, the new trash receptacles in both arenas that we're talking about, or is that separate?
That's
Okay.
separate. These is really on the road side.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Conseiller Brisson?
Juste savoir, les unités de radar, est-ce que c'est de quoi que les données vont être vraiment pris? Ça, c'est des choses mobiles? C'est ça, avec le gros bloc, ils peuvent être déménagés, tout ça?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Donc, ces unités-là, c'est des unités fixes qu'on installerait à 2 endroits. Puis, on peut quand même prendre les données là, qu'ils vont nous donner, mais c'est vraiment des... Eux, ils vont être fixes.
I guess c'est semblable, comme quand t'es sur Ottawa, next happy face, sad face when you're going too
C'est
fast.
ça. Les comtés, en partie de leur programme, on peut commencer à voir ces unités-là là, un peu partout au travers de plus qu'à Brussels.
Est-ce que c'est déterminé à quel endroit, comme c'est là, qu'ils vont être? C'est plus
Ben,
ça?
pour ceux des comtés, ça va sur des chemins de comté.
Ouais, exactement.
Nous
Donc,
autres, on a-
c'est des entrées de village.
C'est juste un peu à voir, afin d'utiliser l'information.
Ouais, ça, ils vont être capables d'analyser l'information définitivement.
Donc, pour la section de pavage, dans cette année, en 2018, nous avons eu the cost of paving really increased. So therefore, the 5-year paving plan that was presented to council last year had to be modified. So we kept the same segment, but we had to push back some segment as well. So for what's proposed for this year, it's the portion of Hamilton Road between Route 100 and 200, Saint-Augustin, and cost sharing with North Dundas for the full length of Marionville Road. So between South Russell Road and St. Mary. So it's approximately 4.5 kilometers of road
Total?
for Marionville,
For Marionville, plus the other two.
plus the other two.
OK. Just for, so en tous les trois ensemble, tu dirais c'est combien à peu près?
Les trois ensemble, on va revenir, j'ai une slide un peu plus bas qui énumère un peu là, les distances qu'on a pavées dans les dernières années.
OK.
This year we'll do another condition assessment of all our road, something that we want to implement to do in the first year of the new council of their term. So that way, every 4 years we can update the 5-year plan and to address some strategy for the paving, like to invest in, not to wait until the road is completely done before repaving, but to adopt a strategy that we can maintain our assets.
Right, because as we've seen in different charts and so forth, different information, at one point in time, if you invest $1 today, well, it might save you $8 in costs down the road. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactement. Donc, c'est ce qu'on va pouvoir présenter au conseil là, quand on va revenir pour les discussions de budget à l'automne. So here, that's the exact plan that was presented last year for the paving from 2018 up to 2022. And here's the modification with the increase of pricing that we've seen. So since Marionville Road was not planned and the increase of prices, we delayed a portion of Hamilton Road and delayed the portion of Route 100 that was originally planned for 2019. And the other changes in the 5-year plan, it's the paving of Burton Road planned for 2022. That would be a cost sharing with the City of Ottawa based on our agreement for that boundary road. So that's a large investment, but with the City of Ottawa, we need to plan ahead in order to get things done.
Quelle année?
2022.
Obviously, if we get a better price with the bid of the counties, then we have discussions at that point in time. Maybe there's other opportunities, but as we saw last year, it came in higher than expected, so we want to be a little bit more conservative with this budget here. Councillor Sosi?
Yeah, I just, is that section of Hamilton Road already paved?
Not newly paved, no.
But it's been paved before, like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was done, I don't know when, but,
because I was just wondering why between Route 100 and 200.
well, we already did from Burton Road to Route 100.
Okay.
So basically, we're starting where we left off.
Oh.
And going to 200, and then
200 to Craig,
200
to the
to,
last section.
Exactly, yes.
I'm
The
just,
whole road's paved.
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
just,
yeah.
I'm just looking here, 2019, Hamilton Route 200 to 100. And then, but in 2020, the rest of Hamilton's not there, correct?
That's my mistake. It should have been for 2020.
Okay, so
So
we
it
are
need to-
planning
yeah.
to do Hamilton to, from Route 200 to Craig the year after.
Good point. It's an omission on my part.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. The other point as well is, we had discussed at one point that there would be a Hamilton in that section, which would be 2020, when we paved the extension of the trail, that it would create a loop to come back. So is that still something to be looked at in 2020?
Well, we Parks and Recs are currently completing a cycling plan, so we're kind of waiting on that validation, and then to be able to do the design to plan it properly.
Right. But in our official plan, though, we've showed that piece as well. So, okay, I just wanted to see if we were still in the same direction. Conseiller Brisson?
C'était ça que je voulais juste renforcer, que justement, qu'on pense à la route 200 à Greg pour Hamilton, pour paver les accotements, pour qu'on puisse avoir cette route-là. Peut-être qu'à ce temps-là, on pourra même considérer la route 200 jusqu'à piste cyclable, que tant qu'à le faire, pour finir le loop, parce que je sais qu'il avait été parlé, même ça serait bon cette année de regarder, pour de l'espace pour un peu de parking, sur la route 200, au bord de la piste. Ça avait été parlé au Park and Rec.
Ça pourrait faire partie du cycling plan que tu es en train de savoir.
Ouais.
C'est bon. Monsieur Begon?
So on the next slide, even we want to show council that in the last year we did benefit from the low price of asphalt, that we were able to do more paving that was actually budgeted. That even though this year we had to take a little step back, but if we look at the overall of the last few years, we're still ahead. Yeah.
So we have, roughly we're doing 6.2 kilometers this year, c'est ça?
6.2 of paved road,
Right.
plus 4.5 of surface treatment shared with North Dundas.
Ah, okay. So basically we have 235 kilometers of road, or 186 plus the
Plus the gravel.
the gravel road. No, just to have a good understanding when people say, I want my road paved, that's usually one of the most things we hear. It's to put in context that we're getting roughly 5 to 10 kilometers of road done a year. You know, it might take a while.
Yeah, and on this slide, we basically resumed the amount of meters that we resurfaced with real asphalt. Donc, nous avons quand même été en mesure de faire 900 mètres de plus que ce qui avait été budgété au courant de ces années-là.
Puis il faut mentionner aussi qu'en grosse partie, depuis qu'on a embarqué avec les comptes ennemis, on a vu that it's showing that it paid off to be part of the tender with the United Counties.
Exactement.
Conseiller Buisson?
Juste pour clarifier, donc, le chemin Marionville avec Dundas, c'est pas la grosse asphalte, c'est rien du surfaçage.
Oui, exactement.
C'est ça, qu'est-ce que c'est?
Oui, qui est
présentement?
prévu, oui. Puis c'est ce qui est entendu avec de leur
Non, mais je veux
côté.
dire, le chemin, comme c'est là,
Comme
is a
c'est là, oui.
surface treated road.
Oui, exactement.
We're just keeping it at the same level of service.
Exactement.
Okay, perfect.
For council benefit, those numbers are not included in the actual budget, but it's to represent what the costs to resurface, which I should say to lay down some asphalt on gravel roads. So you have a price by meter for the surface treatment and the equivalent for asphalt. And we put a number down for a Force Road and a McDonald Road.
So just to confirm, that is the full cost. If today we decided we want to surface treat Force Road, we know it's 119 total.
Exactly.
So at this point in time, I'll just bring up that we got $356,000 from the United Counties. That's not part of our budget. This might be an opportunity to look at those two roads and say, do we want to surface treat those two roads? Because again, since I've been on council, probably since you've been on council, I've been hearing about these two roads every year, all the time, and I believe that these are the two gravel roads that actually have the most houses on them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So,
And to answer Councillor Lorraine's question earlier today, if we were to pave in surface treatment the full gravel roads, it's an equivalent of $2.2 million. And with real asphalt, you're looking at almost double, $4.2 million.
Right, 2.2
on surface treatment.
$60,000 a year that we're paying.
So if we added the both both Forest Road, McDonald Road, if we were to do those in surface treatment, minus the $356,000 from the counties, we'd be looking at having to add an extra $42,000 if we wanted to do these two in surface treatment. So I'm just throwing that out there. Conseil Brisson?
Ça, donc un peu de réticence avec le surface, parce qu'on sait que ça dure moins longtemps. Oui, c'est moins cher, sauf que techniquement, oui, il est plus cher, mais il dure 2 fois plus longtemps. Puis il est plus venimeux à casser aussi, tout ça. Fait que c'est de quoi à considérer que...
Well, we're getting what we're paying for, right? So we got surface treatment versus full asphalt.
Right.
It's lasting half the time, but we're paying half the price.
Ouais.
So, I mean, if council decides they want to spend the money now and get it paved, then, it's either, we invest in surface treatment. We know these are roads that are not, it's not like Notre Dame where the traffic count is extraordinary. It's an upgrade to the level of service on those roads. And, perhaps we can stretch out the surface treatment a little bit longer. But I'm just throwing out the thought. Conseil Brisson?
C'est juste savoir, mais la préparation pour en dessous, comme le gravier, le pactage, ces choses-là, est-ce que tu prépares le même quand tu fais l'asphalte que quand que tu fais le surface?
La façon est légèrement différente, mais c'est inclus là, dans l'estimé qui vous est présenté en ce moment. L'ajout de gravier, la compaction, les tests de sol, etc., c'est inclus là, dans l'estimé.
C'est juste savoir, comme juste faire sûr que si on décide que dans 15 ans ou 10 ans que la surface est finie, mais qu'il ne faut pas recommencer tout le fond complet.
Non,
qui a été fait
ça serait déjà une base là, qui fonctionnerait si, à ce moment-là, le conseil décide d'augmenter le niveau de service. Là, il y aurait cette possibilité.
So it's not tear up everything that's existing, it's building on top of what.
Exactement.
Conseil Lorrain?
I will agree with the proposal to use the $356,000 here and put surface treatment down. I think the gentleman that has come in probably every year I've been on council requesting McDonald Road to be fixed at some point in time. You know what, there's a price to pay for tenacity, and I think we have it, let's do it.
Okay.
At least that brings up the level of service on that street, from gravel to surface treatment, and in the future, if,
Are you talking for both roads or just McDonald?
Oh, no, I'm talking both.
Okay, so both roads, so in that
We've
case.
been missing a $40,000, so we marked that down and we try to figure out where we're gonna come up with another
Exactly.
40.
Monsieur Godin?
Nothing so much. I mean, if we just get back to the strategy for asset management that I presented earlier on, there's no problem, we can have the 356 applied to that, and the difference is gonna be taken from the Public Works Asset Management Reserve. Where we saw that at this point in time, we're transferring money to the reserve, we could just transfer less to the reserve and use it to.
What about growth?
Sorry?
Because of growth, these roads are being used more. And it's an increased level of service.
DCs?
DC?
DCs? Well, no, they're not identified in our bylaw.
Okay,
So,
just throwing that out.
but,
Might be at one point though something to consider
Well,
for
with
a
that,
DC review
but
in
with
the
that new
future.
subdivision that's going in on Church, right? With that new subdivision going in, there's gonna be people using McDonald and Church, and even when we start talking about Big Wall, you know, up past Boundary Road, they're gonna start using that road to get into that subdivision a whole heck of a lot more than they do today.
Okay, well,
I mean, so for the DC question, I can look into it and to see it, like, in the next version of the budget, we're gonna have it in the budget, financed, however we figure it out. In between now and then, I can check with our consultant for from the development charges. I know we can at some points add some projects to the list without necessarily reopening the whole study, so I'll look into if that's a possibility.
okay, well, it might be something to consider when we know the review's coming up in a couple of years, to see what that option is possible. Councillor Sosi, and mostly you got it.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that resident from McDonald Road, but I was just, have you had the request for Forest Road? Because what I was hearing, people were concerned it would become a thoroughfare hooking up to,
I think during the budget process, we had someone from Forest Road,
yeah, I just
Zander,
remember
who's-
one resident, but I'm just wondering, has it been sort of surveyed the people on the road, or no?
No, I've had a few people on the road that have asked, but I don't think we've done an official survey, whatnot. I mean, if the car is using that, if the cars are currently using that, they're going on the gravel road anyways, but is it a deterrent? It's also for the people that live there. Conseiller Larrain?
Well, the other aspect of it is it, you know, it's gonna help out the people that live there's longevity of their vehicles, not having all the gravel underneath all the time and whatnot. And it's not the full paving of the road either to make it that thoroughfare. I think, just building it up a little bit, I think it makes complete sense. So what I'm hearing from you, Mr. Godin, is that we could do both of those projects, add in the 356 from the counties, 40 from reserves, meaning zero increase to
What's
taxation.
presented?
Correct?
That's correct, and still maintaining that $2.05 million infrastructure fund.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to Monsieur Bourgon, bridges and culverts.
So the other big piece of infrastructure that's within the municipality, we applied for a grant for the OCIF, the application base. It's for the replacement of the small bridge Wade, which is just north of Route 400, to make it basically a two-lane. It's going to be a two-lane box culvert type of installation.
So, I'll raise the question, I've raised it in the past, but I think we should have a serious look and discussion when it comes to bridges. We know that, you know, I always like to come back to the return on the investment, so I guess, you know, do we have traffic counts of how many people are actually using this bridge? Is it, you know, 10 people are using the bridge, or it's 100 people, or it's 1,000 people? You know, we know that we're going to spend on this bridge, you know, whatever the cost is here, 700,000, but we know in 20 years, there's another 700,000, or more at that time, because 20 years down the road, our asset management, the value of the money will be. So this is something that is in perpetuity, that it directly affects our asset management plan. So I don't know, you know, at one point, do we want to look at, I'm not saying this specific bridge, I'm just saying bridges in general. Are there options or possibilities available that, you know, we can look and say, is it worthwhile to continue having this bridge?
What would you have instead though? Like what would you put, how could you?
It'd become a
build-
dead end. I'm just, is there sections, is there a bridge that possibly could become a dead end where you would no longer have the bridge as accessible? I'm just throwing it out there because, like I say, these are costs that we got. I look at things from a return on our investment. If there's hardly anybody using this bridge, why are we investing considerable amounts of money in this bridge that could be used elsewhere? That would be a better return on our investment. Councillor Sosi.
Well, to me, it is a major thoroughfare because a lot of people go down Wade Road and to Route 400, including myself, and then turn left past the garage and they hook up to St. Marie that way, or they go right to Gregoire, and it's for all, it's another exit out of the village. So a lot of people, because I know when our other bridge at Wade Road was being repaired, a lot of people were saying, having to go around was quite difficult. They limited their exit from the village. So I know it's utilized a lot.
But all I'm asking for is, do we have confirmation of that? That's all I'm asking for.
Well,
Can we, I just wanna have justification to say, we're investing millions of dollars into this infrastructure. I wanna make sure there's a return on the
It's
investment.
crumbling. I think the major concern is the whole thing is deteriorating to the point where it's almost impossible.
Well, in this case, we're applying for, this is a grant application, correct? Oh, grant, so.
We didn't get it yet, though.
No,
Okay.
so at this point in time, if, it'll be a grant that comes in, great,
No,
but,
it doesn't get done.
right. Conseiller Buisson?
Ça, c'était la question, justement. Si on n'a pas de grant, ça veut dire qu'on ne le fait pas.
Monsieur Bourgon?
On va rapporter un rapport au conseil à ce moment-là.
Pour
avec
voir
la
si on veut
décision,
faire un
pour voir,
offer, to see,
pour voir quelle stratégie ou si on repousse ou qu'est-ce qui est les options à ce moment-là.
but all I'm asking council is do we give direction to the administration to look at all those bridge infrastructures to find out, is there, if they come back and say, yes, definitely we have to redo every bridge, that's fine. I just want them to have a direction to look at these, that way we know planning for the future that, are we moving in that direction or not? So, Conseiller Brisson?
Ben, moi, j'ai comme principe, si le chemin n'est pas fermé, qu'il y a déjà une calverette parce qu'il y a un fossé ou un cric, quoi que ce soit, on ne devrait pas le fermer parce qu'il y a une raison pourquoi le chemin n'est pas fermé au complet, qu'on l'utilise. S'il n'y avait pas assez d'utilisation, que ce soit pour les fermiers ou quoi que ce soit, on ne l'ouvrira pas pantoute. Moi, c'est le même, je le vois, que la chose, je sais que c'est une position différente, mais personnellement, que ça soit rien que pour une couple de personnes qui passent, mais pour les fermes, des fois, c'est indispensable. Ils ne peuvent pas faire tout le grand tour pour le...
Mais je comprends ça, mais comme tu dis, Monsieur Brisson, s'il y a juste, if there's only a few people using it,
Yeah, okay.
I understand they're using it, but, we talked earlier for transit that we're spending money for 200 people using a service. If we only have a few people using the bridge, well, these are a lot considerable higher costs than transit services at that point in time. Monsieur Bourgon?
Ben, je te pourrais ajouter que lorsqu'on ramène le rapport pour la décision du Wade Bridge, we could add info of our 25 structure that we have that's part of that report with traffic counts and location maybe on a map, and that could at
Be
least
part of the-
be part
part
of
of the
the
report.
council's discussion at that time.
Okay. I think it's just giving us the information to be able to justify why we're spending money on infrastructure projects, right? So, Conseiller Buisson?
Une question qui me revient. Juste, si on n'a pas le grant, est-ce que on fait les deux chemins comme Force McDonald ou si à la place, on prendrait cet argent-là pour le faire?
At this point in time, Monsieur Bourgon, on est-tu at a critical stage avec le fonds? On a fait une étude, là, mais actuellement, dans le passé, on se fait dire il reste un autre 2-3 ans.
Exactement. On est à un point qu'on doit agir là, dans l'étude nous dit de 1 à 2 ans.
Ok.
C'est pour ça que
Parce
je
que
demande,
normalement, les types de recommandations.
c'est pour ça que je demande si on l'a pas, si justement on se maintient à qu'est-ce que tu avais recommandé pour commencer, puis l'argent qu'on a dit qu'on pouvait peut-être avoir, le 500 000 ou 400 000 là, qu'on l'applique pour le pont,
Ben, je pense
que
que
c'est plus urgent encore que l'autre. Le pont, il est vraiment rendu dangereux.
ben, je pense à ce point-ci, c'est 356 000. On parle d'une différence de 40 000. Ici, on parle de 621 000. Ça serait une différence de 2. Qu'on fasse un ou qu'on fasse l'autre, si c'est pas fait cette année, ça va dans le budget de l'année prochaine. On applique à OCIF again. If it doesn't go through there, then we have
Goes
the,
unfinanced, then we
We-
figure it out in 2021.
we have a loan at that point in time.
Il va juste apporter la demande si c'est à considérer le pavage de ce chemin-là ou si on se concentre sur le pont.
So, toi, tu suggères qu'on concentre sur le pont?
Moi, personnellement, oui.
So would we rather, Councilor Brisson suggesting the 356 goes towards, if we don't get the bridge, instead of doing the 2 paved roads, you would like to see the bridge done. So that's
Two surface treatments.
the surface treatments, correct. So if we do not get the OCIF funding, Councilor Brisson is suggesting that we put that money onto the bridge, get the rest of a loan, and we do not surface treat the 2 roads. So,
And then next year that we do, that those roads can come on.
well, let's be clear, we don't know if the year after we're getting that funding from the UCPR, and I have the feeling that it's going to be cut in the following year. It won't be necessarily coming back.
C'est pour ça que ce pont-là, quand tu passes, c'est frit, tout ça. Donc, moi, c'est ma recommandation personnelle.
Okay, Councilor Tarnowski?
I just think it's too bad we don't have the traffic numbers, you know, because the people that are gonna benefit from the paving, even the surface treatment versus, you know, like it'd be nice to be able to compare that. You know what I mean, the value of that money, and I know the bridge is important there, this small road, but like you're saying, if it's benefiting 100 people versus everyone coming through on that surface treated road, you know, it's like Augustine.
I think
So, Monsieur Leduc?
c'est une distance.
I don't disagree with the traffic counts and the counts to be put on those slides. There's one thing that's not here yet either is risk management. And for us too, on our side, that sometimes risk, we have to manage the risk. If the bridge is more risky than actual roads, then we might be forced to consider the width of the bridge before that, just for the risk factor. But again,
Because you go there and
When are we expecting OCIF response?
The last communication that we got from them was mid-February, if I remember correctly.
So mid-February, so we could approve this budget, and then if OCIF is turned down, you could bring a report back to council, and we would have the option at that point in time to say, like, for the surface treatment, the contract won't be given by the time we have an answer from OCIF.
No, and we always have the option of putting as a provisional item in the bid.
Okay, so maybe that's what we can do. We can approve as is these items, and then once the report comes back, if we don't get the OCIF funding, there'll be another conversation at that point in time. Very good. Councilor Socio?
Another point. I've also seen a lot of heavy farm equipment using that bridge as they're going through. And what about snow plows? Have you talked to any of the road clears? Like, how do they find it going over there? I don't even know if they barely fit over that.
Mr. Bourgault?
The snowplow does fit, but again, it's a one-way
Yeah,
one-way
but it
bridge.
must be very tight, like it's not very wide.
Yeah, they need to bring up the wing.
Shovel, yeah.
Councilor Allen?
I'm okay with what we're proposing right now for that, however, we're not making the decision tonight, or when we.
To cancel
tonight
one or the other.
To cancel one or the other. That's a separate decision that'll be made after we find out about OCIF,
That's right.
even if we approve the budget as is.
That's correct. So,
With the understanding that the 2 roads are gonna be surface treated.
yeah, we're saying in the budget, the 2 roads will be surface treated. If OCIF doesn't come through, it'll come back in a report, and then we'll have another conversation at that point in time. Conseiller Brisson?
c'est juste savoir pour le traffic count, c'est-tu quoi qui est bien dispendieux à faire? C'est un fait.
Monsieur Bourgault?
Merci, monsieur le maire. Non, on a la majorité de ces comptes, on les a. C'est que moi, mon ordinateur, j'ai pas le logiciel pour ouvrir tous nos documents. Fait que c'est de l'information là, que je peux avoir très rapidement.
C'est pour ça que si on l'avait, le traffic count, ce serait bon de voir le traffic count qu'on a sur Wade, au pont, sur Force, puis sur McDonald. Ça serait pour la discussion.
Monsieur Leduc?
Peut-être pour suggérer au conseil, what if we try to finance or somehow incorporate Forest Road in the project and just leave McDonald Road hanging, depending on the bridge issue, so at least you have one of those two projects. We can look at how can we finance this process. At least we'll have one out of the two out of the way for next year, so. I would suggest if we can find a way of doing that.
I would think the
Yeah.
opposite, McDonald first.
Yeah.
I'm just a cost.
Yeah.
McDonald's more expensive than Forest.
I would say.
But if we leave, but that could be part of the discussion when the OCIF
Yeah.
report comes back, right? If we decide to make changes at that point in time,
No, I would suggest that we do try to find out a way to put the forest project here, and no matter what happens with the OCIF.
okay,
I was suggesting that.
okay.
If we can find a way of doing that.
Oh,
would
if
you
the
be okay?
administration can make it happen,
Ben, c'est là que je dirais avec le count, traffic count, juste voir puis qu'on voit avec la chose là, parce que si on voit qu'il n'y a quasiment pas de trafic quand même sur Force, ok, c'est sûr qu'il y en aurait peut-être un peu plus si c'est pavé, mais si on s'aperçoit qu'il y en a à peu près pas, on pourra, selon moi, on pourra prendre la décision à ce temps-là.
Councillor Kanowski?
What's the timeline on the OCIF funding approval typically?
We'll find out mid-February, what you said, Mr. Bernard?
Yeah, if I remember when we applied, that was the due date of answering back to the applicants, mid or end of February.
Councillor Kanowski?
So really, what Mr. Duke is proposing, so we can wait without any impact in making that decision. Like you won't start doing any surface treatments in February or
Yeah.
March. Right, so it doesn't matter. Okay.
Okay. Merci beaucoup. So we spoke about the Wade Road now, there's also,
Donc, pour des remplacements de ponceau, on a également le ponceau sur blé à remplacer. Puis, le ponceau ici devant l'hôtel de ville, qui est un projet commun avec les comtés. Donc, faisant partie, c'est un ponceau, mais qui fait partie du système d'égouts pluviaux. Donc, c'est pour ça que c'est partagé moitié-moitié avec les comtés. On the next slide, I just brought back the 5-year plan that was presented last year for a replacement of bridges. And with the conversation we just had, we'll add some traffic counts beside every one of them. Maintenant, pour continuer avec les d'autres infrastructures, we have a replacement of sidewalk. Last year we did about the same amount, 300 meters. So again, it's to replace the existing sidewalk, so another 330 meters out of the 700 that still needs to be replaced.
okay, not our total sidewalks.
No, that's just what we identified as
Needing.
critical that need to be replaced.
And that's throughout the municipality? Or
Exactly,
throughout Emblem and Russell?
Well, throughout the municipality. So in the last few years, we focused a lot in Russell. So this year, we'll see more in Embrun. But
We're repairing the most critical parts.
exactly, yeah, we did our list a couple of years ago when we're going down.
the list.
We're proposing, we're bringing back the sidewalk in between the Home Hardware and Foodland. That was a project that was planned a few years ago, but got delayed because of entrance issue. So we're bringing it back. We received several requests for that piece of sidewalk connecting basically the two existing.
And that will be a discussion between infrastructure planning, the United Counties, the business owners in that area.
Yeah, that's correct. And we have another segment along Craig Street in front of the McDougall Park. So that was a portion of sidewalk that was proposed in one of my reports earlier this fall to connect again there's a disconnect of sidewalk,
Right.
and to be able to have one crossing instead of two for the school.
Okay, yeah, because on, just at the corner of Mill, that's where it starts back up.
Yeah, to have basically like those ones like mid blocks with the lights near for the school. Again, there's a portion that was requested to the county as well to pay their share.
Councilor Leddy?
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna be able to get away from the crossing guard though, at both locations, because at the one location now, before, right at McDougal, that's also an entrance into the backyard of the school. So the kids are, if they wanna go in that way, they're still gonna cross at that same spot, even if there's a sidewalk to go all the way down, so I don't think you're gonna get away from, cause they're gonna come in or out at the end of the school day from that area as well, right?
Yeah.
So, I wanna make.
Unless you have a discussion with the school and block that entrance out so that, you know,
Yeah.
we're
Well,
gonna have.
it is blocked throughout the day, but it opens at the morning and at night to
Night.
let them in and out.
Okay, because we're gonna have,
And then walk to the arena,
We're-
go out the back.
Yeah.
we're gonna have a discussion with them as well for helping to pay for the crossing guards, right? So this might be a compromise, how they help us reduce those costs, is
Yeah.
maybe that entrance becomes blocked. That'll be part of the conversations.
But at least the sidewalk could be done to connect.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't
Two ends.
disagree, I think the sidewalk's a great idea.
Okay,
In the next slide, we marked down some, there's the two portion that we just discussed in Russell, plus some potential links that could be added.
it's a little,
So basically, the other portion that would propose in the future, it's a sidewalk along Church Street. So again, to connect the new subdivision to a concession. There's that disconnect near the fire hall. And plus, it's my omission, but there's a one from our streetscape master plan. There's a sidewalk proposed in front of the arena. So I forgot to add it in, but that's
In front of the arena, to where?
to
well,
the,
going north.
going north essentially to like the curling
Yeah.
club entrance?
Yeah, and I believe in the streetscape master plan, it actually goes to the library.
On essaie de parking, comme c'est là qu'on a tu veux dire,
C'est
There's a
ça.
crosswalk, that
tu veux
was-
dire à l'ouest pour connecter tout le long de l'aréna,
Ouais,
Ça?
c'est ça.
de la piste cyclable à aller.
Ben ça c'est mon erreur, j'ai oublié de valider avec le street, notre étude qu'on a fait, mais essentiellement là, ils nous proposent d'allonger le trottoir pour aller, je me souviens pas si c'est à la piste cyclable ou à la librairie. Mais
Techniquement, c'est deux choses. La seule chose chez Canada, c'est quand il y a les gros événements, qu'ils se partent sur l'autre sens.
But there may be enough room.
Mais à ce moment-là du projet, on pourrait valider notre emprise de rue, puis
C'est la ligne orange.
Donc, ça doit être. Parce qu'il n'y en a pas de trottoir de. Sans arrêt.
So, il s'est proposé à peu près jusqu'à la bibliothèque, c'est ça?
exactement, oui.
Mais pourquoi pas plus loin?
Encore une fois, on se fie avec l'information là, qu'on a reçue.
Sur du streetscape master plan.
Exactement.
Councilor Lorrain?
Is that piece included in this budget?
No, it's to show council that we did the exercise of what could be the other potential sidewalk within the boundaries of the village of Russell. And on the next slide, I have the same thing for Ambrim.
But currently, just the ones on Craig Street are the two ones we're discussing.
That's correct.
That are in this budget, but
Okay.
that the future possibilities in the other.
This is just me, but I heard this from a lot of people during the last 10 years, is going right to St. Joseph School with the sidewalk.
Do we, you don't have to give me the number if you don't have it right now, but maybe something in the future is, I'd like to know, we're talking about adding new sidewalks. Well, in doing so, we know that we're adding to our asset management, we know that we're adding to our operational costs. So if we could break down at one point, how much every kilometer of extra sidewalk would be, not only from a installation point of view, but future costs and maintenance point of view as well. Once it has been-
We could I could do an exercise fairly quickly like we did for the gravel roads,
Okay,
to have that type of table for
Yeah.
that breakdown.
okay, perfect.
Because there's I mean, just as an example, you know, there's a lot of road from the Corvinelli development over to up to just past the school. There's a very large, what's that called, side piece there, where people would park or whatever. That's huge, so you'd be able to put that sidewalk on the other side without touching the gravel side as it is, and you'd be able to go right along there, with fairly ease and just expand the road over a bit to the right if you needed to. Because to the east side of the road, you've got a car and a half at least length of extra side roads, so, plus you've got a sidewalk over there, so I don't know if we need that big a road, right?
But again, those are proposed that we've looked at that could be potential link,
In the future.
a project in the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we did the same exercise for Emerald.
Okay, conseiller Dubuisson?
Oui. En nombre un, une recommandation que j'aurais, et qui avait été demandée aussi, c'est sur le chemin Saint-Augustin. Il ne se rend pas jusqu'à la dernière rue du projet. Il en manque un petit bout là. Parce que c'est rendu qu'il y a bien du trafic sur Saint-Augustin. Puis qu'avec les reliés comme la rue Ladelle, tout ça, là. Fait que je ne sais pas si on pourrait le mettre dans la chose future aussi, là. Mais je crois que ça serait un bon à voir aussi.
Monsieur Bourgon? C'est au conseil de décider.
Exactement, c'est des propositions. Le but, c'était de montrer au conseil présentement, on met de l'argent pour réparer ce qui est critique, mais c'est qu'on a quand même en tête qu'il y a des liens possibles là, à faire dans le futur. Puis pour dire ce que Mme Tremblay vient de dire, le Streetscape Master Plan, c'était pour identifier là, ce genre de choses-là. Donc là, ici, ce qu'on peut voir, c'est le lien devant la coop sur Notre-Dame, du côté sud. C'est un autre exemple là, qui ressort de cette analyse-là.
Parfait.
C'est ça que je suggérerais aussi, Saint-Augustin.
Merci. Je pense que c'est tout pour road, c'est ça?
Donc, le prochain appartement, c'est pour Street Lights. Les stationnages, je vais vous montrer un autre tableau. Le format identique à ce que je vous ai montré pour les lumières LED aux arénas. Donc, next base. On propose le même
Scénario.
le même type de financement pour le projet de Street Lights qui a été commencé en 2015, en 2016, puis qui est terminé en 2018.
So just pour clarifier, the LED streetlights, you're just talking about because it went in as unfinanced, correct? We're not looking at we did all the streetlights.
No, exactly. So the reason it's still in this capital project list is because it wasn't financed. When we did the 2018 budget, we had budgeted as unfinanced because it was being financed from the savings.
Right.
So it's just to kind of adjust our practice here. Instead of leaving it unfinanced, we're actually financing it from this energy fund,
Right.
and we'll be replenishing the energy fund with the savings. So it's basically the same thing, except we're kind of proposing that same structure as we did for the LEDs at the arena, which is once the project is reimbursed or once the reserve is replenished, we'll again keep 75% in the first year, 50% in the second year, and then 25% in the third year. In this project here, it's a bigger project and it's taking a bit more time to get the payback. But as you can see, after the fourth year of so after 2027 basically, based on these estimates, there's going to have a cumulative impact, like a saving of $262,000 to the tax base, and the reserve is going to have $247,000, and then an ongoing $105,000 yearly obviously with every year, the hydro costs go up. If the cost per kilowatt hour goes up, then that means the saving is higher. So that
We
one-
would have incurred that extra cost had we not done this move anyways.
Exactly, so this is the same kind of principle that we had recommended previously.
Conseil Brisson?
C'est juste pour savoir, est-ce que ça serait dans le même compte qu'on a eu pour les autres lumières, comme que ce soit tout ensemble?
Oui, donc essentiellement, oui, il va y avoir dans le fond, c'est une réserve qu'on appelle
Une réserve
fund.
énergie.
Par contre, on va quand même documenter puis garder quand même le projet pour qu'on puisse appliquer cette
Mais
pratique.
oui. C'est pas deux comptes d'énergie, c'est un
Non,
compte
C'est
d'énergie.
un compte d'énergie.
Puis c'est l'argent qui va faire des deux projets
Oui.
pour financer d'autres choses
On va pouvoir
d'énergie.
l'utiliser pour faire d'autres projets.
Et juste clarification. Alors, on a une couple d'années déjà de fait. Si on voit bien, on voit le savings d'à peu près 105 000 par année avec le changement qu'on a fait, c'est ça?
Exactement. Donc, ça fait 3 ans maintenant qu'on applique 105 000 qui représente l'économie d'hydro pour les streetlights. Qu'on applique ça envers le projet. Donc, c'est un projet de 750 000, sauf que si vous regardez votre document du capital, en date de fin 2018, on a un montant de 426 000 qui est non financé, vu qu'on a déjà contribué 105 000 de 3 fois.
Parfait. Any questions? No?
Donc, ça, c'est 426, puis ici c'est marqué 435.
Donc, dans le tableau, c'était vraiment pour présenter le concept, puis on a arrondi un petit peu à avoir des chiffres ronds. Donc, c'est sûr que au lieu de 435, là, on est rendu à 426, c'est un peu d'écart. Donc, c'est le montant qu'on transfère, dans le fond, c'est pas 105 000 exactement, c'est environ, je pense, dans le budget.
106, 107, ça dépend.
Et, ben, c'est ça, exactement.
Sur ça, c'est juste vraiment pour démontrer le formule, si vous voulez. OK. Je vais continuer. On rentre dans Storm Sewer.
So for storm sewer, we're currently, as we mentioned earlier, we're completing a study with the funding from FCM. So that's our first project that we see here, and the second one, from those conclusions, we'll be able to tackle some repairs of our system. And with that, we have the location of our combo truck, so to clean our storm sewer system for about 2 months.
Okay, so we're looking at some financings from the reserves. We have a portion that's the grants and a portion from the infrastructure fund.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Questions? Councilor Lyle?
Yeah, I'm just looking, the storm doesn't fall under the water and sewer
No,
program,
no, it's still under taxation.
still under taxation.
But we're looking,
Well, it used to be really still under basically the roads. Now we're trying to separate all those projects separately, but it's still financed by taxation.
Monsieur Leduc?
To your point, Mr. Dorian, Members du Conseil, we're setting up for maybe a potential user fee in the future when we really track the exact cost for storm management. Then we'll be in a position to recommend the council to consider implementing a user fee whenever that happens. But that's why we're trying to change our accounting process so that we can really start focusing on that. We had been neglecting that area. Now we've put numbers together, now we're trying to match it for a couple of years more, and then maybe a user fee suggestions in a few years from now regarding this.
Thank you. Next item?
So now for the sanitary sewer projects, we have the replacement of a radio.
So, sorry, just to interrupt. So now that we're in sanitary sewer, you're gonna find it in a different section of your binder.
I was gonna say, it's not following.
Exactly. So if you, we can do it now, but just turn the pages. About 5 pages down. Pages recommended. At some point, you have that long spreadsheet with the really small numbers.
Yeah, that one, I can't read anything?
Skip that one, and then you'll, oh, actually, sorry, it is.
It is that one, isn't it?
No,
No, it's the one of the.
no, it's after that.
Ah, here we go. Environmental.
Non, dans le même paquet, c'est comme ça. L'avant-dernière. Avant-dernière.
Okay. So it says environmental rights is the first one.
L'avant-dernière, ok.
Okay. Everybody on the same page? We're good. Monsieur Bertrand.
So we have replacements of our SCADA system, so the radio system of 2 pumping stations in Embra. So that's just part of our of replacement. We did 1 station this year, so we're planning on replacing station after stations with the newer equipment. Then there's the installation of the sewers on Church Street. We're doing the design, so again, that's a project paid user fee and partnership with the developer.
That's the one that says South Park Russell on here, right?
Oh, yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Then another installation of sanitary sewer for the project of Richelieu Héritage,
That's so cool. Okay.
Estelbeau. So the design was completed this year. So planned for construction next summer. We have improvement of Station 7, which is this pumping station located here beside the City Hall, with the addition of a commercial land to the north. We know that there's upgrades required for that station, so this year we're going to do all the planning for it, do the design of upgrading of pumps, permanent generator, so to do all our homework this year, so that way we can implement next year.
Now, just to clarify, is it cause that we've designed that land that we're gonna have to upgrade?
Yeah, so that project, I believe it's 100% financed by BC.
Okay, perfect.
For, if I,
That's the PDO's 203,150, c'est ça? The P7 upgrade?
yeah, that's it.
Just want to make sure we didn't find ourselves in a situation where we made a move and all of a sudden we're not paying and we didn't take into account, so. Okay.
And well, that line to bring the service to the 417, that was in the budget last year in case of a lame duck situation, if a grant would come our way. We have the removal of ammonia. That's a study that we have with a grant from FCM. So it's going to be completed in the next couple of months. So that was a project that's being transferred to be completed this year. I keep on going down the list. We have the completion of the sewer on La Madeleine. Because of our late timing last year, the pumping station could not be completed. So that work is going to resume in the spring. We have the completion of the 2 EAs that are currently underway. The one for the industrial park in Vars and the EA study to bring services to Limoges. So those are going to be completed this year. And we have the sludge removal in Embra that's going to keep on going this year as well. Another project that was started late last year.
Perfect. Conseiller Brisson?
Est-ce que c'est ammonia removal? C'est quoi ça? Je pensais que c'était la sludge. Mais c'est quoi?
C'est qu'on a nos taux d'ammonia sont assez élevés dans nos lagunes quand c'est le temps de relâcher l'eau au printemps. Donc on a une étude avec du financement de FCM de déterminer des façons qu'on peut changer soit notre opérationnel ou une amélioration future pour nous aider à descendre nos taux d'ammonia dans l'eau pour faciliter notre décharge là, au printemps.
Fait que le 64 000, c'est juste pour l'étude, c'est pas pour rien
Non,
physique, pour faire baisser.
Non, c'est juste l'étude telle quelle. Puis il y a une partie du financement là, qui vient d'une subvention qu'on a reçue.
Conseiller Brisson?
Je vois dans ces lignes-là, justement, chose à 417 de 8 millions. Est-ce que c'est conditionnel, ça aussi, à l'approval des propriétaires des commerces là-bas? Est-ce que
Ben, essentiellement, le 8,4 millions, ça, c'est la décision du conseil si jamais on va de l'avance. À quel point, tu sais, c'est vraiment le conseil qui va faire la décision d'y aller ou non. Puis si on a le support du monde là ou non, ça va faire partie de ces discussions-là. Mais évidemment, c'est juste pour l'avoir dans le budget. Si jamais il y a du financement disponible, qu'on sait qu'il y a un fait associé dans le budget. Monsieur Leduc?
Tantôt, M. Godin va vous présenter un autre slide sur ce qu'on parle de l'endettement. De ce projet-là, si on va d'avant avec aucun octroi ou aucune participation des usagers, qu'est-ce qui arrive? Donc, ça va aussi répondre à votre question. Donc, on ne procédera pas à ce projet-là sans avoir du financement.
parce que c'est quand même 13 millions, là, parce qu'avec l'eau, puis...
13 points.
Ouais, 13,2. Ouais.
C'est pour ça qu'à chaque année, on fait un pitch au gouvernement pour avoir de l'argent. OK. On peut continuer, M. Bourgon?
Donc maintenant pour notre système, le système d'eau, on a le remplacement de valve replacement. So again, that's a type of maintenance that it's been ongoing for the last several years. So we have that amount yearly to do the repair on our system. The water leak detection, that's a project that we've been pushing off for the last couple of years. So we're waiting on, once we're done with the water meter replacement, then we're gonna tackle that project. We have the rehab of the Russell and Marionville towers, both water towers. We did a condition study 2 years ago, so we're doing the repairs that was recommended by that study.
Question? Continue.
On a aussi le remplacement d'un camion qui est passé là, sa durée de vie, là, son remplacement.
Conseiller Lorrain?
What are we doing with that vehicle?
As we stand for now, since it's like a
96.
cargo van type of vehicle, we would probably trade it in. At this time, we don't have any use for that specific vehicle.
And there's no other department that could use that specific vehicle. We could? So let's see what the trade-in value is, and then we'll make a determination if anybody else can make use of that vehicle.
Is the 50,000 the total cost of the new vehicle, or is that plus the trade-in?
That's basically like after the price of putting some shelving in that new van and equipment in it. So shouldn't use that 50,000 if we look at the prices that we pay the other ones. But it's just for those shelving. We just want to
Bring it
make
up
sure.
to standards you have to.
Well, exactly, and it's from reserve. So if we end up using 45, we're gonna draw like 45 from the reserve.
Well, I think if we can repurpose the other vehicle, I think we should do that rather than trade it in.
It's a cube, man.
Well, it's those cargo vans, so it's
It's not the big box one.
no.
Okay.
Ce qui fait, s'il y a trop d'argent là-dedans.
Ouais, c'est ça. On va voir que
Mais c'est
l'administration va regarder si quelqu'un.
C'est quelle ligne, ça?
Ça, c'est le dernier remplacement 96 €. Parfait. D'autres questions?
And if I just to complete the list, well, to complete both EAs to have the water share, the water meter replacement, and we have to complete a study to determine a way to rechlorinate the Marionville water tower. That was a project started this year, should be completed shortly.
Parfait. Et créatif.
So for these ones, I just got to drop back to the initial sheet after the roads. I think it was 2 pages over.
OK. Madame Guittard.
Merci, M. le maire. Membre du conseil. Donc, il y a quelques projets que nous avons repoussés là, de 2018. Donc, je ne parlerai pas de ceux-là, je vais me concentrer sur les nouveaux. Donc, pour les nouveaux projets, on continue à, we still want to replace some play structures and parks and install some new ones, so that's still in the budget. And then we want to change the floor at the pool. We've been painting and repainting that floor for a few years now, and obviously because there's so much water, so much detergent going on the floor, the paint never stays, even though we get this done by professionals. So we've looked into a special rubber flooring that we would be installing. It's almost like puzzle pieces, and they're very, they're like they seal them on the edges so the water doesn't get through that. So we're looking into getting that kind of flooring, and it's a very easy maintenance also, which right now the floors are very hard to maintain, to keep them clean.
That's in the pool?
That's at the pool, that's right. And then we've put some money for the New York Central Trail. I know we've had some plans, it didn't go through, but we need to decide what to do with the train station. So we've put some money there because obviously we need to repair. We repaired the roof, and the boards on the walls are getting really damaged now, so we need to look at that seriously in the upcoming year.
That's an amount of $20,000, correct?
That's right.
From the infrastructure fund.
That's right.
Okay.
The next one is the, sorry.
Councillor Janowski? Councillor Sosi?
Excuse me, just lost my voice. Yeah, no, that was one of the things that I put forward to, was on the train depot, was utilizing it as a summer information kiosk. And I was highlighting our bike path, our local breweries, using it almost like a tourist information. Having postcards from our photo club, and our conservation areas could be highlighted, all different attractions that are in the area, restaurants, pubs, whatever, that somebody was going through, and then it would possibly give a student a job for the summer. And I could see with it being at the entrance of the bike, we could highlight the bike path and different things like that. So it was just sort of one of the ideas that I had presented.
Councillor Janowski?
Juste clarifier, est-ce qu'on, pour le 20 000 pour la station comme ça, est-ce que c'est pour faire une étude ou pour juste appareiller le...
Appareiller.
Ok, merci.
Conseiller Brisson?
C'est juste là, on a parlé de trail, puis on parle de 50 000 pour safety measure.
Oui, c'est un projet qui était dans le budget 2018. Et si le conseiller Brisson se rappelle bien, l'automne dernier, quand M. Bourgon a présenté son plan pour les safety measures, on s'est entendu que je repousserais ces argents-là pour qu'on puisse travailler conjointement à établir les safety measures adéquates pour les traverses là, de la piste cyclable.
Mais pour 50 000 c'est quoi que...
Mais il y a beaucoup de signalisation à installer. On avait aussi parlé d'une nouvelle signalisation dans le Round Circle. Donc, il y a beaucoup d'argent à investir là-dedans. Okay. Donc, l'autre item, c'est le musée, Keep Boyd Museum. I had prepared a report back in December, and the council had agreed to have discussion during the budget. So here we are tonight. So if you recall the report, which was very technical, there was a study done by, a proposal was done by a consultant, a heritage consultant, and there was also a proposal for pricing. So the first price that we got was basically to change all the cladding.
Councillor Lorrain?
I was waiting till she was done.
Okay. So basically the first option was to change the cladding and replace with something like CanExcel. This was something that I had brought up to council over a year ago. The option 2 is to replace with the wood cladding, which is a lot more expensive. That would be $140,000 versus $55,000. Right now, we had $71,000 in the budget. That was budgeted for 2018. And if council remembers correctly, I had pushed this money towards 2019, as well as the ramp construction. Because the ramp construction, we received a grant of $10,000 for that. So,
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to follow along with just the projects and the projects, the way they're listed there, and then the projects that are listed here aren't
So,
matching, so I had a question on the parks.
so perhaps it's easier if we just go line by line item this
Okay.
way.
no, it's just that I thought, because some of the projects were some of them that were pushed, so I wanted to minimize the time, but that's, for sure, I can go line by line. So the first one was for the Richelieu, okay,
Get to, Monsieur Larin, which one are you referring to?
Neither.
In
It's-
the parks?
It's, no, but it falls under the parks, and I have a question about it.
Okay.
We have, all the signs that you have up for all your installations. Do you have money somewhere to either repair or replace these signs? And I'm gonna be specific, the sign for the youth center is ripped off halfway. And it's been like that for 3 years.
The reason why we were not changing any signs, we did change one last year as Councillor Saucier had requested, because there were holes in them and they were torn off. We were waiting for the branding. So I was told not to do any signs, because if we change all our concept and the logo and everything, those signs are about $1,000 each. So this is where I was debating and changing signs. I did change the one for that park specifically because it was really, really damaged. But obviously the one at the youth center, we could just get a sign youth center, but not with a township logo or anything like that. It's just because I don't want to have to redo all those signs, because it's a lot of money involved.
I'm just trying to fix, you're not replacing the whole sign, you're replacing
Yeah.
the front piece on it, right?
Yeah, so if I'm just replacing that sign, that'd be okay. But if you look at all our park signs, we have the same logo, we have all the same style. But I had to wait for the new branding to come out so that we would be showing the new branding.
So, clarification, there's, for the branding exercise, we have some money in the budget for the branding exercise, but not the implementation, or the flags, I think you have, I saw a line item for, but the rest of the municipality, the signs, that kind of stuff, that's not in this budget if we decide to make changes. Is that correct, Monsieur Lozette?
Not in the budget, but we do have extra reserves on the branding. We don't use up all the reserves that we have. So there's some reserves there for future replacement of actual signs whenever we get there, if we get there.
Okay.
So there is some money there for the future.
Okay.
But I could definitely look into the one for the youth center.
It just looks bad,
Yeah.
Okay.
where you've got
Yeah, yeah.
half of it missing,
Yeah.
and it's comme ça, là.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll just start off with the section 720 parks. So those that are in the reserve section, those were essentially projects that were pushed from the previous years. Is that correct? And I see that one we're looking for is we have a grant for the cycling plan. So if there's anything that members of council see that catches their eye, I know that I see the new sun shield on the bike path. I'm not sure if that's a $20,000 there. Is there a huge demand for it?
Well, I think yes, it was a demand, and also it was also because that's to install at the end of the trail at Saint Guillaume.
Right.
The reason why it was pushed in 2019 is because with talking with Monsieur Bourgon, he told me that he would be filling up the ditch, so it would be nothing because they're going to be doing work there. I'll be filling out the end portion of the trail because I personally I don't like that section. I don't think it's appealing when you come in. you see all that ditch, all that long grass growing, and it's not appealing. This is what you see when you come in the village, and then you have your nice round circle. So I think this corner should be fixed.
The only
So-
thing I'll suggest is that we coordinate with planning as well, because we know that, there's, commercial development that will be coming on the other side of the
Yeah.
road. So
Yeah.
we wanna make sure that we look at it, overall, because I wouldn't wanna see work done that just has to be disturbed later on because we have something else going on as well, so. Okay,
Because basically the sun shield is 4 posts.
post.
So that's why I didn't wanna have to install my shield, and then Mr. Bourdon comes in and he fills up
So
the ditch.
it's just a shaded
shade.
area to sit.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you've seen this before, it's like shades in the different directions, like, it's really nice and it's colored. So because, when I got the work done at the end of the trail, the big rocks, it was mainly for people to have a break and sit down, and people do use that. So, but they're sitting in the big sun.
Right.
So at least they could have a little bit of shade, and then they could just jump on their bikes and go again for a bike ride.
Okay.
So that was the intent behind this.
If it is, members of council, is there anything else catching your eye? You see some,
For a report or everything.
Councilor Associate?
There's some, instead of the sunshade, there's no place to put trees there for shade?
It's very hard because we have the easement with Bell, and I'm not sure if you noticed, Bell is constantly digging around my big rocks. And in fact, there's some damage that was done because the fiber optic is there. So I would absolutely not put anything there because it's gonna be taken out. They're there, and I'm not sure why, they're there every winter. They were there like almost on Christmas Eve. They were digging everywhere.
Ça peut-être
Yeah,
Is there any way we can find out what they're doing?
Well, it's there, it's, the fiber optic is there, so I guess they're having issues with
Well,
the
we have
fiber
commercial
optic.
development in the area, so most likely that's what it's related to.
Not sure. But it was Bell Canada that was there.
Bon, mais le fil pour qu'il s'en va au parc commercial, il a été fait juste tard dans l'année, ça fait que je sais pas s'il reconnecte, quand ça arrive dans ce point-là, là, tout ça. Et parce qu'ils l'ont passé dans les airs au lieu de le passer dans la terre pour descendre au parc commercial, mais ça a été fini juste tard, fait que c'est tout bien comme ça qu'ils ont refusé.
Anyway, so all to say that I would not plant any trees there, honestly.
So if we're going down the list really quick, Conseiller Brisson?
Ben, si on va dans la liste, je veux juste avoir des clarifications la ligne Solar Shade for Hall pour Embrun Arena.
Yep.
Il y en a une à Russell aussi.
Yeah, we, our intent is to, how can I say that, like, do a nice cleanup in both halls. So we want to repaint, and I know for a fact, in the hall in Russell, we've been, criticized for that, we have no blinds. And we used to have blinds in Embrun, they're all broken, and, you know, it doesn't look nice. And when people have some reservations, it's private parties, they wanna close down the shades, because like in Embrun, for example, people from the ice can see inside the hall. So they like to pull down the
So
shades.
from the exterior and interior,
That's right.
both sides of glass
That's
to
right.
put some
So
shades.
you have both sides that have windows, so yeah, it's costly, and I wanna buy something that it looks nice, and we got a price from a local, he's the one who did the blinds of the dome. So I got a price from him, just to have an idea on how much it would cost. And I think our both halls needs a bit of TLC.
Ok, c'est pour ça que je demandais ça, c'est quoi, mais...
Conseiller Laurent?
Yeah, I just, I'll also make reference to the heaters in Embrun
Yeah.
Arena that are being replaced next week.
They're replaced on the week of January 28th, and we're gonna be doing a good tune-up also for the ones in Russell, because the ones in Russell are still repairable, so we're working on those.
Okay. Let's just say I was talked to quite briskly, especially with the cold,
Yeah, I know.
the cold weather that we had over the last week.
Yeah.
That's Murphy's Law.
And
Yeah.
that I was there Tuesday and Wednesday, and both nights people were
Yeah.
asking me when they were being done, and I was glad to be able to tell them next week.
And also, if I can add, the furnace at the museum was changed also because it broke. It was 20 years old. So, of course, it broke when it was -30. So luckily, we were able to put some heaters during the weekend, and it was completely changed and operational as of Tuesday night.
Now, we're talking about the church building, correct? Or are we talking about the old fire hall?
Old fire hall.
The old fire hall?
Yeah.
It's just it's two
Yeah, yeah.
buildings, right? So,
Yeah.
just want to clarify which one we're talking about.
Yeah.
Coming back, we have the discussion for the Keith Boyd Museum is in regards to the cladding changes, the siding outside. Whether we want to go with the $70,000 repair, or the $140,000 repair. I think it's, I'm looking for direction from council. Councilor Associates?
Well, the question was, did all the cladding have to be repaired? They were just hoping that some of the damaged ones could be replaced because, again, it's the oldest building in Russell, so they were trying to retain the heritage value of it, not put vinyl on it.
The consultant really made strong suggestion that it should all be changed, because obviously it's wood, it could be rotten underneath, you will not know, and it's gonna come out, and it's still gonna leak, and it's gonna do some damage again. So, you know, it's very old.
Yeah, it's, 1836.
Yeah.
So I know like from the Heritage Point, the committee, I think, was hoping to keep the original facade. And that was they were hoping as, just to keep the history of the church.
There's also possibility of funding. Mr. Mayor sent that to me. We're gonna be sending an application next week. Right now, we're looking, I think the maximum is 25,000, or maybe more, but the one we were looking was 25,000. So if we get that, it's another 25. So if council would prefer until we get the answer from that grant and then decide, do we go with the wood, do we go with the Canexel?
Well,
That could be an option.
Yeah, I think if the maximum of the grant is 25,000, it's either,
It would bring us to 100.
it would bring us to 100, we're still looking at adding $40,000 expense. Does the Historical Society provide us with, again, numbers, if you will? I always look for the return on the investment. I know it's open a few hours every Sunday. Do they track how many people are coming in?
Yes.
I do have those numbers, in fact, I do have those numbers, in fact, and unfortunately, that's why we didn't get the grant from Trillium a couple of years ago, because the traffic is not high enough. So they're looking into their return on investment, and they didn't find that this building was used enough by the outside public. It's a museum, you're in Russell, so they can't expect to have 50 people walking in there every day. And of course, it's not open every day.
No, it's just open a few hours on
Yes.
Sunday. And one thing, if we're ever speaking to the Historical Society, as far as the tracking of numbers, I'd like to see a difference between how many members are going through and how many non-members. 'Cause
Yeah,
if
they
we're-
have those
yeah.
numbers. And we do, but when we have events, they're very well attended. We had too many coming to one event, so we had to cap it. So but we keep track of all that. But I know they were I think it was only like the bottom foot that was damaged, so that was what they were hoping to just replace. And I would suggest we discuss it with.
Because if we decide to, obviously, it's a lot cheaper if we decide just to change the bottom wood, unless we start ripping up and then we find out that.
Yeah.
And at first, the committee thought that it was the foundation leaking, but it's got nothing to do with the foundation. It's the way the cladding was done, and then there was no eavesdrop installed, so this damaged the wood a lot, because all the rain was going right on the
So
wood.
chances are,
It went in the back. of
it went in the back, so if the
That's
boards on
right.
the bottom
That's right.
are finished,
Yeah.
chances are the water went all the way
Yeah,
through.
and then some of the windows were not properly sealed, so it went through the windows, like on the edge of the windows. It went inside, so it did damage in the basement, the
So realistically, does this changing all the cladding involve, when we take everything off, what kind of damage is underneath? Could we find ourselves in a situation, it's like a house, right? You pull the wall off, and all of a sudden, it's not just the drywall, it's the whole wall behind the drywall, or the studs, or the stuff.
And unfortunately, they did some holes here and there, but there's no way for them to know this unless they take everything out.
Ok. Conseiller Brisson, d'un conseiller associé.
C'est juste savoir aussi, comme le revêtement, que la chose, est-ce qu'il y a eu un sample de montrer que c'est proche de qu'est-ce qui est l'autre, que...
J'ai le sample, je voulais l'apporter ce soir, j'ai complètement oublié.
Pour le montrer aussi
Oui.
à...
C'est un sample, mais tu sais, vous regardez l'échantillon en bois, puis vous regardez l'échantillon en Canexel de loin,
Ça paraît pas.
ça paraît pas. Je vais être honnête avec vous, il n'y a presque aucune différence. Okay? Si vous êtes de plus près, mais là, c'est certain que vous allez voir le wood grain. Okay? So it is different from very close. Yes, there is a difference. And the wood that they have and the Canexel, you can both see that at Rona. They have that product. The wood sample was sent to me by the consultant, but it's exactly the same that they have at Rona.
So really,
Puis l'entretien de l'autre, le bois,
Well,
il y a
that's
un
another
paquet, puis
thing.
l'autre...
The maintenance is not absolutely not the same, because the one with the wood will need some maintenance. Canexel doesn't need maintenance.
Councillor Associé?
Just thinking, forgot my train of thought. I guess, well, again, from a historical point, it will not be considered a historical building once it's been updated.
Just to clarify.
Well,
is-
sorry, that's why I had waited, because when Madame Tremblay had the issue with the heritage, so I thought, maybe if it does become a heritage building, then we will not have a choice to put some wood plank.
Because it could be part of the district. Yeah.
Could be part of the district, but I'll ask this question. We're looking at putting a district, would we be severe to say you have to put wood and not put Canex?
Ouais, c'est ça.
Because that whole discussion we had of residents being afraid of what we're going to do, I mean, if you tell me now that it would be, your response now will definitely have an impact on how the heritage district conversation will go. It was to keep the general look.
Mhm.
It wasn't to replace the same material. Madame Tremblay?
Do I have to respond? You're right in the sense that if the material is not something that defines the building, then it wouldn't be protected. But if the material defines the building and it's something that you find, like let's say they're red brick, so if all the houses are red brick, they're gonna suggest to replace. So this one, the material defines the building. So probably if it was in the district, it would be something that would be identified to keep and maintain as much as possible.
And the
Yes.
fact that it's a museum, that's part of it too.
The other problem that we have now with the museum, I was able to push the grant towards 2019, but I will not be able to do that for 2020. So at one point, a decision will have to be made, like,
So,
And
early
do we
2000
have to be the ones repairing it? Because I know, like, for instance, the door, what's the word? The threshold.
the seal, yeah.
Was all rotted at one
Yeah.
point, and we
Yeah.
had it replaced locally
Mhm.
by, and
Yeah.
the person did a wonderful job and kept the feel of the door.
but it was still the township's
Still
responsibility, right? Like,
No,
did we
no.
hire the person to do the
No,
work?
we
No,
did.
they did.
Il est là, c'est un petit job.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is that a possibility that they look at fixing it?
Monsieur Leduc?
What is the openness of the Historical Society to raise funds, to have some campaigns to raise funds, or to cover some, let's say we split 50-50,
Yeah.
they seek to find so much and we match so much and we
So-
get the cladding done as properly.
The only comment I can make to that is the comments made by, I believe, the new president or the incoming president, who has clearly stated in the medias and on social media that this is a township responsibility and it's not up to the Historical Society to raise funds. So, you know, if the Historical Society, we could put in the budget that we are willing to do the wood cladding if the other $70,000 is raised. I have no problem with that, but again, it has to be, it's a very short time frame for the Historical Society, I think, to raise $70,000. If we knew this, it was 2-3 years down the road, possibly, I don't think they're gonna be doing it in the next 6 months. If they are, I want them on the committee to help raise funds for the recreation complex if they can pull off that money in 6 months.
No, but it's a good idea to bring it forward, because I could see a trivia night or something to raise funds for to preserve the building.
So could we can just put in the budget that it's $140,000, $70,000 coming from the reserve and $70,000 coming from user charges or whatever, and if there's grants, whichever, and if there is no ability to raise those funds, then we'll go with the Canex.
And in the meantime, I'll still apply for the grant,
grant.
so we might be successful.
Monsieur Leduc?
So, in that scenario, what would be the deadline to make a decision, because we have those funds to either return or carry out the work? So
Well,
what would be the kind of the deadline to say it's Canex or it's wood, depending on what date?
Well, it depends how far the work can be pushed back. If the work can be done in September,
Okay.
so then, we're giving 8 months' notice to the Historical Society, if they agree to do fundraising, but that'll be part of the conversation with them. I don't anticipate they say they're willing to raise $70,000. And if they give us an honest answer right off the bat and they say no, then we move forward with the $70,000 project. But that's my suggestion. Members of council, we can offer, definitely, but if we don't want to drag that along either, right? Conseiller Buisson?
Surtout que, oui, peut-être c'est pas de le bois, mais c'est comme je le disais tout à l'heure, c'est l'entretien qu'autrement, faut dire une chose, ça fait que s'ils veulent le ramener, parce que là, ça coûte plus cher à le remettre, ça coûte plus cher à entretenir. Si l'autre de loin, il ressemble beaucoup, des fois, c'est à considérer aussi.
Yeah, well, that's it. If you can't tell the difference when you're standing from across the street, or it's only when you go close up that you'll start seeing the difference. It still it'll still have the same look heritage-wise. It's just when you're standing 2 feet in front, it will be different. So, everybody's okay with that? Not an ideal solution, but it's $70,000. If not, we're looking at either we're cutting $70,000 from somewhere else, or we're increasing that $70,000 in taxation.
Puis là, on ne sait pas s'il y a d'autres surprises là-dessus. C'est un petit dommage pour une vieille bâtisse.
I just would like the opportunity to bring it to the committee, so that they know that this is on the table as the cladding or the.
Oh, well, I think the Historic Society is well aware of the two